All right, being 5:30, we'll get this town hall meeting on the way. I want to welcome everyone. Thank you for attending. We have a town hall meeting when there's issues that we want to talk about and address. Tonight's issues are going to be housing, homelessness, and drug issues. And I want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, who attended our 2 meetings ago on July 5th. They brought this to our attention, and we felt it was necessary to have a town hall meeting. And obviously, it was needed. So, what the city, we will also be going over what the city has done, what we intend to do, and take suggestions and comments. So the way it's going to work tonight, to begin with, we have a panel up here, which is going to be Councilor Stephanie Kilmer, Councilor Drew Farmer, City Manager Roger Craddock, Nicole Reffler, our Assistant City Manager, who will be running the screen, and we'll be going through that, so you'll be able to see it posted. We also have some packets. I don't know if we have enough, but some of you do have them. Also, we have our City Attorney, Nate McClintock, Police Chief, Chris Chapinar, and Police Captain Tom Lindell, excuse me.
We can't hear you back here.
All right, I will make sure you can. All right. Well, Wim, I have a loved one that's going through some treatment, and I want to keep them safe, not me, but them. All right? So I hope you understand. Thank you. Pardon? Okay. So also on July 5th, it was made, a comment was referenced by Mr. Taylor that he had a vested interest in this community. Well, we all have a vested interest in this community. That's why we're here. And we have issues to address and deal with. So what we'll do is we'll do the presentation and then we'll make comments. And we plan on taking the comment for quite a bit of time. And so hopefully everyone that wants to speak will make sure they get a comment in. Okay? So first thing on the agenda is discussion of various aspects of homelessness. And so we'll get that started. The panel that's going to be addressing this are the individuals is Councilor Stephanie Kilmer. She'll go first, Councilor Drew Farmer, and Captain Tom Lindell. And so, you want to get started, Stephanie?
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. Obviously, there are a lot of factors that are factoring into things that lead to homelessness, and I will be addressing housing. Similar to other states, Oregon is no different. 70% of extremely low-income renters have spent more than half of their income on housing in 2021. More than 584,000 homes are needed to meet the state of Oregon's population growth over the next 20 years. And half should be built affordable to low income to serve the population in Oregon. As we all know and have experienced over the last couple of years, construction costs have increased drastically, making building housing more complex. Also, supply issues have plagued us. Director Andrea Bell testified last week, and she's the Oregon representative for community housing, so she works for the state of Oregon. She testified on tax incentives to increase affordable housing because it is clear that that is very much needed in our community. Locally, Coos Bay is considered a severely rent-burdened city. That's where at least 25% of renter households in the city are severely rent-burdened. Some of you are probably here tonight. And at the last point that I was able to find some statistics, we are at 26.5%, and we are amongst a lot of cities in the state of Oregon that are experiencing that, where a household spends more than 50% of their income, household spends more than 50% of their income on rent. The city completed a housing needs analysis to identify what the unmet housing needs are in the city. It includes taking an inventory of buildable lands to help identify what the needs will be in the next 20 years. Councilor Farmer and myself served on that housing needs analysis, and it's staggering. We are fortunate that we do have buildable lands. There are communities that are in particular dire straits. And by spring of 2023, the strategy report is expected to be completed. That report will include a description of chosen housing strategies, a timeline for adoption, when implementation of the strategies is expected to achieve the needed housing, and the report will include housing needs by income, housing, the number of units anticipated that will be created, and populations who would benefit from housing production strategy implementation. And this is something that we were fortunate enough as a city to be able to undertake. Our staff was ahead of the game, but as you're all aware, it takes time to develop the things that we need, the tools that we need to implement something that can help benefit our citizens and decrease the level of homelessness from people that are displaced. Obviously, the pandemic also led to that, and we have really critical situations on our hands here. So I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of what the city has been facing, what we have been doing over the past few years to try and address the needs, and the incentives that we are implementing to help spur development in our area.
Well, I think that brings it to me for mental health. Can folks hear me? Oh, good. So I'm going to go kind of street to state on this one. So what we see with homelessness, depending on the study you read, anywhere from 40% to 70% of homeless individuals have mental health issues. Some folks argue whether that was due to drugs, whether it was nature, and then they were on the streets and then took drugs. Doesn't really matter at that point, they're on the street. So you've got homeless in your community. We've got from there the aspect of when they're in crisis out in public, and that's usually the folks are going to see and associate with homeless individuals is the folks that are highly visible. Not a large percentage of the individuals, but it is who folks are going to see. Problem there is with Oregon state law at this point. If the individual is in the middle of traffic, kind of the classic example, somebody cites homelessness, individuals out in public, they're in traffic. Officer can come, pick up that individual, take them to the local hospital, and the local hospital under Oregon law does not have the right to hold them. That is because under Oregon law, by the time they get into the parking lot of the hospital, they are not considered to be a danger to themselves or others anymore. So the hospital can't hold them, and if they decline service, then the individual is back out on the streets in public. And then it gives the perception that you're seeing homelessness to a greater degree. Really, it's a shortfall in the state's mental health system. I'll circle back to that. What it also creates is that perception that we have a revolving door. Well, legally, and this will get into more down the road, the officers aren't allowed to do anything with that individual. The hospital isn't allowed to do anything with that individual unless they consent to care. So you see more folks in public. If they do consent to care, we reach the point where what can the hospital actually do? Or if they manage to rise to the level that they are allowed to be held at the hospital, what does the hospital do? Well, we saw recently, and everybody saw, the hospital almost had to shut down its mental health ward. And that's because expenses were up. They were, I think, $19 million overspent by the third quarter out of their four-quarter budget. And that is in part because they had to act as a mini-state hospital. And I'll get back to that. Example of that, what that means, very violent individual, example that happened, goes into mental health services here at the hospital. Okay, state hospital refuses to take them. Case is beyond the capacity of local services to really manage, but they're forced. Individual assaults 11 people in the first 3 months. Critical injury to one of the individuals that was a provider, a nurse. Individual was still there for, I believe, 1 year because the state wouldn't step up to its responsibility, for which the state hospital has been sued by 2 hospitals in the state now. But this again, now that facility is full with people that were outside of the level for the hospital to care, so people they could have cared for that are above the normal tier, you're going to see in public even more. So you get the higher perception of homelessness in the community, and an individual without the ability to make really critical, rational decisions is going to act out in certain ways, and you'll see that as well, and that's another part of the problem. Moving from the local hospital we step up to the state finally. So why is the state a problem? Well, part of it is the regulations around when and how you can conduct treatment. Individual can be in complete disarray by the time they show up in the hospital, and as I mentioned, they have to be turned away if they don't agree to care. You don't get the chance to stabilize them for a couple days so that they can render informed consent. Oregon considers them already where they can. And then they go back out into traffic. Or in another case I heard about, they tie something around their limb real hard until it looks like it's going to fall off. Cop can't do anything, law won't let them. State hospital, understaffed. 2020, Oregon ranked 51st in the nation for adult mental health access because they included DC. So we had counted lower than the total number of states in the country for our ability to access mental health services for adults. 2021, same case. 2020 to, I think, a month ago, the National Guard was deployed to our state hospital because they didn't have staff. They had not prepared, they were not sustaining. It's been going on since about 6 years ago that they started shuttling people out of their system, sending them back with no notice. So you see more homelessness. From that point, there was an effort in 2021 to try and get some House bills passed. I had reached out to multiple legislators, try and set up a listening session about what the problem is, why the problem is. Reached out to the heads of both parties, House and state, locally, and senators and House rep, and many other local governmental entities throughout Coos, Curry, and Douglas County. I had 4 respondents. City of Coos Bay, 1 commissioner out of Curry, somebody from Reedsport, and only 1 actual state representative or senator, Representative Boomer right there, who was able to move forward through the Mental Health Committee 2 House bills to reach discussion that would have allowed police and medical personnel a little more latitude in stabilizing someone so that they could render informed consent on their care. Those, unfortunately, were opposed by a large cross-section of the governor's work group on the 988 phone number, who argued that a phone number was going to be more effective than a case manager sitting right in front of the client. That was not helpful. So that runs you very quickly through the street level to the state level of the mental health aspect of the crisis, disregarding how they got into the mental health position. I used to work in mental health. A lot of people had it. A lot of people self-medicated. Some people drug-induced psychosis. So either way, you've got the same problem, and I'll pass it along.
Captain?
Thank you. So addiction has long afflicted many people in our community and has contributed to homelessness. With a limited number of treatment facilities in the local community, many people suffer addiction for their lifetime. Alcohol and drug use and abuse is a nexus for many of the police and fire calls that we have in our community. Drugs that our department sees most frequently being used and abused is alcohol, marijuana, methamphetamine, heroin, and recently fentanyl has hit the mainstream here in our county. Addiction frequently tears apart one person's life until they end up living on the streets, where it then contributes to keep them living on the streets. In 2020, Oregon voters passed Measure 110, which decriminalized drug possession with the hopes of cost savings that would create opportunities for new drug addiction treatment and recovery grant programs. Some believe it's too early to see results from this, but to date, very few people have sought treatment or entered in any sort of treatment program as a result of Measure 110. The amounts of drugs that one can possess as a user quantity per the bill is quite high, and the consequence of any sort of repercussions is extremely low. Many people who were issued an e-violation ticket for drug possession never appeared in court, and just for clarity, our officers are no longer allowed to arrest people who possess drugs within these decriminalized limits. Instead, through legislation, we're to issue them a $100 fine. It is very difficult to measure how many people are plagued with addiction. Unfortunately, we have seen a trend in our community of increased emergencies as a result of drugs. Fentanyl, a synthetic opioid, has made a big surge in our community and across our nation. Given that fentanyl is about 50 times stronger than heroin, our first responders have been responding to a major increase in overdose emergencies. In 2021, there was approximately 74 overdose incidents in Coos Bay. So far in 2022, we've responded to 73 overdose incidents, several of which unfortunately have resulted in death. Addiction is responsible for a wide variety of person, property, and quality of life crimes. The results of these crimes can be challenging to our community's image and perception of crime. We have less ability to address addiction through our criminal justice system as a result of Measure 110. The police department and the city is still working to address addiction within our community and the impact that it's having, and we are still trying to find ways to hold those accountable who are committing crimes as a result of their addiction. Thank you.
Okay, the next item we're going to address is case law and enacted laws. And so presentation on recent Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals case law and enacted state laws by City Attorney Nate McClintock. Nate?
Thank you. In the past, many communities had various laws against loitering, camping in public areas, things of that nature. More recently, the federal courts, especially the courts here in the Ninth Circuit, where the state of Oregon is located, have issued some decisions which have limited the ability of cities, counties, any kind of municipal organization to have those types of laws. And the one that I think we need to talk about initially is Martin versus City of Boise. This was a case that arose from a lawsuit filed against the City of Boise by a group of homeless individuals who were living or had been living in Boise, who had been cited by the city for violating the city's camping ordinance and their disorderly conduct ordinance. The camping ordinance made it a misdemeanor, in other words, a criminal offense, to use any street, sidewalk, park, or public place as a camping place at any time. Camping was defined as the use of public property as a temporary or permanent place of dwelling, lodging, or residence. The disorderly conduct ordinance banned occupying, lodging, or sleeping in any building, structure, or public place, whether public or private, without the permission of the owner. In other words, basically, you can't sleep anywhere on a public property or private property if the owner says no. The evidence presented in that case indicated that the plaintiffs, who were the homeless individuals, had been cited under those two ordinances. While there were 3 homeless shelters located in the city, they had limited capacity and they had limited duration. I believe one of the places you could only stay for 17 days. And 2 of the shelters required some level of religious participation in order to maintain staying at the facility. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals held that the plaintiff's religious beliefs were where that person's religious beliefs were in conflict with that of the shelter, that the shelter was not truly an available place for that homeless person to stay. There was also evidence that some of the plaintiffs had been cited even when there was no openings available at the shelter. The court held that the 2 ordinances violated the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution, which states that excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted. The court found that criminal penalties may not be inflicted upon persons for being in a condition which the person is powerless to change, in other words, homelessness. As such, the 8th Amendment prohibits the imposition of criminal penalties for sitting, sleeping, or lying outside on public property for homeless individuals who cannot obtain shelter. Given that human beings are biologically compelled to rest, whether by sitting, lying, or sleeping, just as the state may not criminalize the condition of homelessness, in other words, you can't criminalize just being homeless, in public places, the state may not criminalize conduct that is an unavoidable consequence of being homeless, namely sitting, lying, or sleeping on the street. And their actual holding, or part of it, I'm going to read to you, said, the court stated in pertinent part, we hold only that so long as there is a greater number of homeless individuals in a jurisdiction than the number of available beds and shelters, the jurisdiction cannot prosecute homeless individuals for involuntarily sitting, lying, and sleeping in public. That is, as long as there is no option of sleeping indoors, the government cannot criminalize indigent, homeless people for sleeping outdoors, on public property, on the false premise that they had a choice in the matter. The court noted that in its that it was a narrow holding. In other words, it's limited to the facts of that particular case. And the court went on to say that we in no way dictate that the city must provide sufficient shelter for the homeless or allow anyone who wishes to sit, lie, or sleep on the street at any time and place. The court indicated the city has the right to create reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions when and such it says when and where homeless people can sit, lie, and sleep. So that case basically held that, one, you cannot simply bar people from sleeping on public property, but it did say that the city can enact reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions, which I believe the city of Coos Bay has done, which someone else will be talking about shortly. There's another case that came out after that involving the city of Grants Pass. They attempted to, rather than making a criminal offense, just a violation, which would be a fine. But the court held the same holding was, and the same rationale was applied as in the Martin case. And as I pointed out, the Eighth Amendment requires not only, it doesn't just deal with punishment, it deals with fines as well. The state of the law now in the Ninth Circuit, which does govern the state of Oregon in terms of the Eighth Amendment constitutional law, basically severely limits the city of Coos Bay and any other public entity in basically preventing people from sleeping on public property, and that's part of the reason why you see some people sleeping on public property. It doesn't affect private property. If you're a private property owner and you know people are sleeping or on your property, you can trespass them from the property, and there's things that can be done about that. The Martin case was designed more specifically to public property. Since then, the Oregon legislature has passed two different bills, laws. The first one, I think the one that's most important, is House Bill 3115, which effectively took the Martin versus Boise judicial decision and converted it into state law. In essence, the law requires that if a county or city enacts any measure to regulate the acts of sitting, lying, sleeping, or keeping warm and dry outdoors on public property that is open to the public, those measures must be objectively reasonable as to time, place, and manner with regards to persons experiencing homelessness. Going back to the Martin case, that's kind of what they were saying there. Is you can have reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions, but you can't just say carte blanche, you can't sleep on public property. The bill does not set up any standard by which a county or city can determine what is objectively reasonable, but states that in determining whether the measure is objectively reasonable, one must look at the totality of the circumstances, look at all the facts surrounding it, including, but not limited to, the impact of the law will have on persons experiencing homelessness. In other words, if you're putting together some reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions, they need to be reasonable. You can't be using them effectively to bar people from sleeping on public property if there's no other option available to them. There's also the option, of course, if there's sufficient shelters if that's the case, then it does give the city or the county more options in terms of preventing people from sleeping on public property.
Useless word salad. Violence is on the way.
Thank you very much. It also gives the right of the plaintiff, the homeless person, to... Let's keep it down, please.
Exactly.
Okay. Let us continue, please, all right? No interruptions. Let's get through this, and then if you have some comment you want to make, we'll take comments. All right, go ahead.
House Bill 3115 gives the plaintiff, in other words, the homeless person in the particular case, the right to file a lawsuit challenging the city or county's measure. It does provide that if that person prevails, they can recover their attorney fees, but it specifically says they're not entitled to actual damages. In other words, there does not create a private right to action for monetary damages. The second bill was House Bill 3124, which deals with what happens to a homeless person's personal possessions if, for instance, he's been trespassed from someone's property and he's left, or there's a homeless camp that's been cleared out. It requires that that at the location where the person was camping, it needs to be posted 72 hours before it's being cleared out. to give them notice to collect their stuff and get it out of there. If after that 72 hours, personal property is still there, the police or some other service agency which is empowered to enforce these, the 72-hour notice, can go in and collect each individual's possessions as best as they can determine, keeping them separate. And then they need to hold it for 30 days. Again, keeping it separate, giving an opportunity for the individual or whoever claims to own that particular personal property to come forth and say, this is mine, and give it to them. And if no one claims it within 30 days, then the city can either dispose of it, or if this is worth something, they can give it to, donate it in some sort. One caveat there is that when that 72 hours is given, if there's personal property which is an unsanitary condition, no apparent value or utility, if it is believed to be stolen, if it's evidence of a crime, or it creates a health hazard, it can be collected immediately. And that's kind of the state of the law right now in terms of Oregon law and federal law having to do with homelessness and what the city can do or city can do or can't do in terms of trying to control homelessness.
So if I understand correctly, though, Supreme Court refused to hear this.
Yeah, that's true. I did mention it. Martin versus City of Boise was appealed up to the United States Supreme Court. The Supreme Court refused to hear it. So Martin versus state law is effective in the Ninth Circuit, which is basically the West Coast, Hawaii, I think Alaska as well. Doesn't necessarily impact other circuits around the country, but that we don't live in other circuits. We live in the Ninth Circuit.
And also, Nate, even if the Supreme Court went ahead and heard this and overturned it, let's just say theoretically, which I know is going to be a long shot, with these House bills enacted, it won't affect us.
Well, that's true. I mean, that's state law. So state law is already, is basically said you can have reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions, but you can't just simply bar people from sleeping on public property if there's no other option available to them. So you're right. If Martin versus Boise had been overturned, House Bill 3115 wouldn't have affected that at all, or House Bill 3124.
And so if the city of Coos Bay didn't follow this criteria and we were sued and we lost, how does this affect the taxpayers? It comes strictly out of the tax.
Well, if you're appealing some,
People in here that are sucking up the sound, could you guys talk louder?
Okay, all right. So let's try to, if you're interested in this, we're going to try to present everything so it is understood. Sir, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take my mask off. Irene went through that. Okay, look, all right? If you're not going to be quiet, then we're going to ask you to leave, but we're going to try to get through this presentation and explain what's going on. All right, thank you. All right, Nate?
that's mature.
All right, so anyway, if we are sued, the city of Coos Bay, what would happen?
Well, the city gets sued, and then obviously the city has to defend itself. This is probably not covered by insurance, so the city would be incurring attorney fees to defend this case. And if the city loses it, they're going to have to pay not only their own attorney fees, but the attorney fees of the plaintiff, the homeless person.
Yeah, so
and taking cases, like up to the Supreme Court, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So, yeah, Boise was $3 million, and I have no idea. And there's attorneys looking out there, an individual willing to sue on this. If we lose, if we didn't follow this criteria, it would come out of our tax base, monies that we utilize to operate and maintain our city. So just want to clear this up. Now, we did enact...
I'd say there's more to that. I mean, obviously, this is the case law. This is the law that we're supposed to follow.
Correct.
And if we don't follow the law,
Well, we are
it
following the
doesn't
law.
make, but we are following the law.
Right,
attempting
and we
to follow
intend,
the law
and I
now.
guess we intend to, but the retribution would be very horrible for the city. Now, we enacted a camping ordinance that Nate referenced. So how many cities in the state right now have a camping ordinance, Roger?
I don't know for sure how many have them, but we're one of a handful.
Right. I think we were the number 2 city in the state to enact a camping ordinance. McMinnville was first, and then we were second. So very few have this, and so we've taken this initiative.
It's obviously working.
Well, but it's something more than other places, so it is working. Okay, so we move on. Presentation to various
I think
contributing
some of
factors.
those questions will be answered as
Pardon?
we get into I think some of the questions that they're talking about, that the public is talking about, will be addressed as we
Correct.
proceed forward.
Right. But we need to go through the presentation. I just want to make sure that we get some questions answered and try to clarify some things. So, let's see, various contributing factors and challenges surrounding homelessness by our chief, Chris Chapiner.
Yeah, okay, so good evening, everyone, and I also wanted to start off just thanking everyone for coming here tonight. I know we're discussing some very complex, challenging topics, and I know that not everybody in this room is going to agree with even some of the solutions to these problems. However, I think it's important that we all can gather in this room, we can talk, we can listen to your input, we can explain where this, what the city has implemented and where we're at. We're going to shift a little bit. I'm going to shift little gears here. I'm going to talk specifically about the police department, the types of calls that we're responding to. I put together some stuff. Hopefully it's not too long. I'm going to provide you with some statistical information and just kind of explain some of the contributing factors that we're up against at this point right now. As we have already discussed tonight, we've talked about mental health in our area. We've talked about it as a state level. We've talked about addiction issues, drug issues, overdose, increase in property-related crimes. And I'm going to talk about the lack of jail space, the inability for officers to take people who have committed crimes to jail, to even have them booked, fingerprinted, photographed. I'm going to talk about some recent case rulings and the overall lack of resources within our area. Without the jail being open right now, someone who is committing crimes and causing those crimes within our community, they're basically left in the community to commit more crimes throughout the day, require multiple police contacts, which only exacerbates the problem and drains our limited resources. So that being said, I'm going to talk briefly about our police department that I manage, that I'm in charge of, and I'm going to explain to you what we've been responding to, the calls for service, the crimes we've been investigating, and how we are currently making arrests. I'll provide you with some statistical information, and we'll talk about how the police department is conducting business under these current times. In addition, I'll talk to you a little bit about our limitations and what's causing those. So let's get started about the police department. The police department consists of 24 sworn officers. We have a full 911 dispatch center. We have 13 dispatchers. Although we're not fully staffed right now in our dispatch center, we are designed to have 13 dispatchers. We have 3 record specialists, we have an evidence technician, and we have a few volunteers. On a daily or on a monthly average, our officers respond to just shy of 3,000 calls for service. Those calls consist of everything from petty theft, robberies, major assaults, sexual assaults, and even occasional homicides. However, the majority of these issues that we deal with that affect the livability of everyone in this room is generally our less serious crimes, the disorderly conducts, the criminal trespass, the criminal mischiefs, and the property-related crimes. On an average, our police department responds to about 100 calls for service a day. The police department generally has 3 to 4 police officers on during that 24-hour period, and that's meaning that each officer will respond to about 20 to 25 calls for service. When an arrest is made under our current jail capacity, most of the time the offender is issued a citation for the crime committed in lieu of custody. This doesn't mean that the case isn't being investigated or that there wasn't actually a crime committed. What it means is that under the current jail policy and the capacity, the crimes that they commit don't meet the criteria for the subject to be transported to the jail, where under normal cases they'd either be booked, fingerprinted, photographed, lodged. It just really depends. But instead, right now, what is happening is we are issuing out citations in lieu of custody. Just to provide you a little better understanding of how often this occurs, we did a 7-year look back. We found in 2016, and I can go slow on these stats, and if anybody wants them afterwards, they can come talk to me. But 2016, we made 622 arrests, and we issued 327 citations in lieu of custodies. Now, this doesn't mean citations, traffic stops, that. These are criminal citations. Somebody committed a crime and was issued a citation in lieu of custody. 2017, 743 arrests, 327 citations in lieu of custody. In 18, we had 446 arrests and 225 citations in lieu of custody. In 19, we had 624 arrests and 285 citations in lieu of custody. In 2020, we had 284 arrests and 819 citations in lieu of custody. In 21, we had 363 arrests and 797 citations in lieu of custody. And so far this year, we've had 248 arrests and 454 citations in lieu of custody, and we're slated to, at this pace, reach over 900 citations. The reason I provide these stats is to show that the officers are responding to calls for service. We are making the same amount of arrests, if not more, than we did way back in 2016 when the jail was operating at 49 beds. However, the number of those arrests now that are transported to the jail is completely flipped. And now we are citing more in lieu of custody on a regular basis. Again, I just want to reiterate, this doesn't mean that the offender is still not responsible for these crimes. They did commit it, and they will be, at some point, held responsible for them. However, it means that they have to work its way through the system, through the DA's office, and ultimately through the courts. To further complicate this, and I'm not trying to sound doom and gloom, but just explaining to you the facts here, to further complicate this situation is that more than not, a person issued the citation doesn't appear on their court date. Then what ultimately happens is a warrant is issued out for their arrest. When an officer has contact with that person and they have a warrant, they are not able to take that person into custody, again, because of the jail capacity, and get the person transported. So they're issued another citation, what we call an FTA. It's a fail to appear citation on the original charge. Just a real quick look, we have people, let me just get through it. I'm just explaining to you what we're working with right now, okay? Just a real quick brief look, we have some folks in our community that have 10 to 15 FTA warrants, and this cycle just keeps getting repeated and repeated. It's obviously a very ineffective way to address crimes being committed and becomes a major burden on our resources. It also sends a false message to the community that the police aren't doing anything about the crimes being committed in our community, and that's simply not the case. Many times the officers will arrest the subject, transport them to City Hall, where we can complete the paperwork, issue them the citation in lieu of custody, and that's just to help mitigate the frustrations of the victims, and also for that offender not to re-violate or re-offend the victim again. So we transport them here to get them out of the area. Another statistic I wanted to provide this group is based on the unsheltered group members of our community. Just like the sheltered members, not all of our unsheltered members are out there committing crimes. And I've pulled some stats to back that. Criminal activity, and not all of them have the mental health issues, as Counselor Farmer indicated. However, law enforcement, we have a tendency of dealing with the 5 to 10% of the said class 90% of the time. And that's either sheltered, unsheltered, we're just dealing with that element 90% of the time. So if you take a look at that and you're dealing with that class 10% of that, 90% of the time, what it looks like from a public perception is that all unsheltered homeless folks are committing crimes, and that's just not the case. And earlier, I did look at some stats, and like I mentioned earlier, our officers responded to about 100 calls a day for service in that 24-hour period. We are responding to about 20 to 30% of those calls are dealing with are unsheltered. So we still have a percentage, a fairly high percentage of folks that we're dealing with that are sheltered, committing crimes within our community as well. The other thing I'll mention, I know that it's been brought up a couple times at public meetings about folks being bussed into our areas. We have ran down those leads when we hear about them. I'm not going to say that it doesn't happen from time to time, but it is. We can certainly say it's not happening on a regular basis. And in fact, right now we only have one busing company that comes into our area from the Florence area, and then CCAT, obviously. So we've done some legwork, done some check-in. I know that there was a concern brought up that somebody was they were being bussed in weekly off of Ocean Boulevard near Cascade. We ran that down. That is just simply not factual. So does it happen from time to time? I'm certain it does, but not at a regular basis, at least from what we... I'm sorry?
Has it ever been found that it happened? To have bust someone in?
We have found cases, yes, where people have been bussed in.
But criminals come here on purpose knowing there's a revolving door. They come from other areas. that have
Yep, sir.
knowing-
Well, you're welcome to address that when it comes up. But anyway, and we're glad to take your testimony. Let's get through this, and then we'll take public comments, okay?
I just want to talk one more thing, and then I'll come back a little bit later and explain a couple of our resources that we have. But the other thing that pops up from time to time is the issue of vacant houses or houses being foreclosed. Just most of you probably already know, but in order for us to be able, law enforcement to be able to take action, or the city through our codes, take action on those foreclosed homes, is they actually have to go through the complete process. And so a lot of times what's happening is they're in the middle of that process. And the bank that's going to take ownership of that does not have the authority to start an eviction process and get that ball rolling. Nor do they have the authority, and again, this is private property. That's the big thing that we all have to remember here. They do not have the authority to allow us to go on there and criminal trespass a person living on that property either until they have gone through the process. The biggest issue with the foreclosure process is sometimes it can take up to 2, I've even seen it take up to 3 years before. And so in the meantime, the house is becoming even more and more of a nuisance in the community. We are going to talk about a program that we've implemented. I think it's been successful about registering those unoccupied homes, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, we're just going to do a various efforts that we've made to date. So Stephanie, you want to start off with the homeless committee?
Sure. One of the first things that I and my fellow counselors did after I was elected in 2016 is trying to address this, and it seems like it takes a long time, but again, you know, as you heard from all the things that have been talked about up to this point, the situation seems to get a little bit worse, and there's contributing factors to that. But one of the first things that the council did after 2016 was establish the homeless work group, and Councilor Farmer and I chair that work group. And basically what it is it's a think tank. Our staff that is dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, and what we hear from the community as counselors, from citizens, we can bring to the table. And I know that I, as one of the people that was going to help lead this group, is I didn't want to be part of leading something that didn't try to resolve some of the issues. In other words, sometimes it's easy to create a committee and then nothing happens out of it. After going through a lot of things, I can say that this group, which is made up of representatives from not only organizations that serve the homeless, this is the important part. They are citizens in our community that are dealing with this, from neighborhood watch groups. They are people from mental health. The tribes are represented. And we have alternative youth activities, which is on that committee, because we have homeless youth in this community as well, living on our streets. That group was established in 2018, And there is a host of items that have come to this group, which has kind of morphed, transitioned, grown, shrunk, and done everything that a living thing should do. We're going to talk about some of those things that have happened. This group has been effective in making recommendations to the city council and working with staff on some of the issues that we're facing. And I had somebody actually come up to me on the group that's been representing governments for a long time, shortly after we had met just a few times, and they said, "This is wonderful. I'm seeing things happen." So even though it feels like there's maybe stuff that you're dealing with as citizens out there in the community and the folks who are online that are watching this, there are things that are happening and have made a difference in our community all the time. So I think we're just going to kind of share. Huh?
Can you name some of those?
Yes, we're going to talk about that because I think that's important.
That's what I'd like to hear.
Yes, okay. So I will now pass it over to
Chief
the
Chepner.
chief,
right.
who's going to talk about one of the first things that we did with the establishment of a resource officer.
Yeah, so one of the first things that the group did, as Councilor Kilmer just indicated, was we implemented a community resource officer. That position, well, first of all, we reached out to other law enforcement agencies in the state that had similar programs, so that way we could try to not reinvent the wheel, but to have kind of a pilot program or some kind of a map on how to set up our program. And I think the program has been even more successful than what we had anticipated, and it's hard to believe that we actually operated without a community resource officer in the past. Looking at our current stats, and I'm not all stat driven, but I just think that they kind of paint the picture. The current stats on an average, like I mentioned, 20 to 30% of our daily calls involve unsheltered people whom have either committed a crime or in need of some mental health services, or some sort of services within our community. Approximately 2 years ago, we established a new program within the police department called our Community Resource Officer position, and the officer's primary duty is to work with the unsheltered population, connecting them to the local resources such as Coos Health and Wellness, medical services, nonprofit organizations, and we call it CRO, a community resource. The Community Resource Officer affords the officer the time to spend with each individual and not tethered to the police radio running call to call. As I mentioned earlier, our officers are very busy. They're running from call to call to call. And this position has allowed that officer to spend a little extra time connecting them to the resources, and or spending a little extra time dealing with the situation to, whether it is getting the unlawful vehicles off the roadway, off of the city right of way. I think most of you in this room can probably attest to where we were a year and a half ago before we had our community resource officer, and a lot of the unlawful vehicles that were parked on North Empire Boulevard, South Empire Boulevard, North 6th, and he's put a lot of time and effort into that. Like I mentioned earlier, the program's been proven to be very effective. On an average month, our community resource officer has about 200 contacts. Obviously, not all those contacts are brand new, unsheltered folks in our area. A lot of times these folks, they require constant management, constant services, constant help. Coos Health and Wellness will bring out their mobile response team, and what it does is it allows our initial officers to go out and have contact, and they may have to break away and go to another call, but our community officer is able to stay on scene and follow through and provide some of those services, those wraparound services that we haven't been able to do in the past. So we're pretty happy with the position. Make sure I covered everything that I wanted to cover on that. And there may be some, I will talk about community resource officers also been successful working with groups like ORCA. We've implemented a Homeward Bound program that's been successful as well. That's a program that's, if somebody is needing to get to another location out of state or even within the state, but we can verify that they have family, that they have resources where they need to go, a job, or if it's not a job, at least family to accept them. That way we're not just busing our problems to some other state or other city. But if we can verify those, then we use the Homeward Bound program, and there's funds available for us to relocate them. And that's been a successful program, and so far we've relocated about 50 different individuals. And again, there's some steps. We're not just busing them. We're verifying that they have resources, and they're going to connect up with those resources. Thank you.
Captain, I'm going to talk about the camping ordinance.
Yes, so I have a couple to cover. First, in 2019, the city passed an ordinance that established a due process to exclude people from city property like the library, the boardwalk, or parks if they were found committing certain crimes or violations of established rules. Those individuals would then be excluded from the property for some duration of time, and if they were caught back on that property during that time frame, they could be arrested for criminal trespass. In 2021, the city then passed a camping ordinance, which limited the time, place, and manner for camping within the city limits of Coos Bay. This ordinance was crafted to be in compliance with House Bill 3115 and 3124, which Mr. McClintock talked about. Though it's not perfect, in my opinion, it has shown a lot of success within our community. It was rolled out very closely to a revision of the abandoned vehicles and unlawful vehicle ordinance, which just provided some clear requirements for vehicles being parked on the public right-of-way.
Okay, Roger, you want to talk about some of the community services and the housing issues?
Yes, so obviously housing was talked about as being a component or a causation for some to be homeless. I would say between 2016 and to date, 119 new homes have been built inside the city. The city has approved a 400-unit subdivision called Timber Cove up above Cascade Farms. A number of other small subdivisions, anywhere from 6 to 15 new homes, have also been approved. Most recently, we've had a developer approach the city and go through a pre-application for an additional 200-home subdivision off Nautical Lane. Some of those homes range anywhere from 1.5 million down to 300,000. That may not address and will not address some of our people experiencing homelessness. But what I can tell you is that there's two large projects, one involving the city and one involving Gloria Day Lutheran. The one project involved the Inglewood School. Inglewood School burnt down in late 2014. The former owner fled the area and left the school as it was. The county ended up taking the property in foreclosure due to non-payment of taxes, yet they didn't have the money to clean up the contaminated lot. The city entered into an agreement with the county whereby the city would use funds available to the city to clean up the property if the county agreed to turn that property over to, at the time it was Orca, now it's Northwest Housing Alternatives.
Yeah, there.
And Northwest Housing Alternatives would agree to build low-income units there. That has occurred. The property has been cleaned up, and Northwest Housing Alternatives going through the process for both building codes and for land use to undertake that project. We don't expect it to get built until either late 2023 or early 2024. But between that project and Gloria Day Lutheran, that's 80 additional units inside the city limits of Coos Bay that will be affordable or low income. In addition, the city helped incentivize some redevelopment of upper floors in the downtown. One project involved the Buggy Bank. Buggy Bank second floor hadn't been utilized in a couple decades. That has been redone into 11 studio apartments, and those apartments are leased out to OHSU. Where that is important, before that, OHSU was taking up a couple of duplexes, and thereby taking housing away from local. In addition, we partnered with the new owner of the Tioga. It has 53 apartments, I believe, in it. 10% of those hadn't been used in a couple decades. Those have all been fixed up and put back into service, as well as the apartments in the Koski building. Currently, the city is looking at an incentive program to build duplexes, actually triplexes or better. It's called the MUPTI program. It's a multi-unit property tax abatement or exemption program. It's been proven to work in other communities such as Cottage Grove and most recently Florence. If a developer, within the parameters of the ordinance, builds a triplex or better, they could get a 10-year tax exemption for paying property tax. Those units cannot be used for short-term vacation rentals. They more often will be just rental units, which will add to the housing stock. For Cottage Grove, who adopted theirs in 2019, they already have 80 new units. Prior to that, they did not have a triplex or better for more than 20 years. Florence recently adopted it earlier this year, and they have over 80 already in the application process. So we're going to go through the process to see if that's something that, one, will gain approval for the overlapping taxing districts and for the council, all in an effort to incentivize more housing development.
Okay, so this is going to be a time for public comments. So how many people plan on making a comment? Just raise your hand. Okay. Is there any out in the back that I don't see? So, pardon? There's a paper out there. Okay. So what we're going to do is let's start with 2 minutes. We'll have our captain keep track. If everyone gets through, then we'll go back, and if you want to come back up and make another comment, we're going to allow that to happen, okay? So the other thing is, I just want you to realize that we're going to ask you to come up and make these comments. This is not a question and answer where you ask us a question and you expect an answer. What we'll do is we'll take all your comments, make sure everyone can get through it. If there's something that we feel that we need to address, someone on this panel can reference it and address that issue that you bring up. And then I just want to, well, but I don't know if it's the same question coming up time and time again, one answer would work. So what we'll do is take all the questions. If there's an answer needed, we'll go ahead and address it. If we have not addressed that question, then we'll go ahead and address it, all right? But we want to make sure everyone can get through it. And then if you make your comment, like I stated, and you want to come back up afterwards, we'll go ahead. We're here to take as many comments as we can. So I saw a comment said that the city doesn't think out the box. The city does not think, and I believe that we've proven that we have. But I also hope that you have some suggestions for us that we can integrate or work with or do some things. We don't have all the answers, but so that's why we're having this town hall meeting. So we're going to get started. I guess we're going to start with the public comments, and then I'll start with the people in the back if I haven't addressed you that are standing, okay? Oh, Gloria Lamora? Oh, come on up. So if you just would give us your name and where you reside, and then go and just give your comment, okay?
My name's Gloria Lemire, and I reside in Coos Bay.
Okay.
Okay.
And you got to
Mine is
speak into
really
the
quick, so
speak
I'm
into the
glad
mic, like we found out people have trouble hearing. So
Mine's really quick, and I have a very short-term memory, so
Okay.
I'm trying to remember my question. First of all, my question is, do you keep track of the local people that actually are from Coos Bay that live here and transients? And what percentage is that? Do you keep track of that one way or the other? Or do you just take homeless as a whole of everybody? And the reason why I ask is I'm wondering how many people are from other states that travel here, because most of them that I talk to, they're from other states. They don't live here. And that's why I asked if you know the percentage-wise.
Yeah, do you
And
want
then I
me to
have
take
one
that? Or?
more-
sure, go ahead, take it, Drew.
Cool.
All right, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Are you done? Any more?
No, I have one more real quick
supposed to wait.
question. And it's for the captain. Now, you're explaining the laws for that passed here in Oregon for the drugs, okay? Now, are those the same, what is the aspect as, those are the users, what are the aspects for the dealers? And are they processed, or are they just citationed too?
Okay, all right, so is that it?
That was
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
Drew, did you want to address that?
I think we said we'd wait until the end, so
But go ahead.
Oh.
Let's try to address it. Maybe we'll save some others.
Okay, so tracking. The Devereaux Center is the primary provider of homelessness services in our area. They do keep track of who's local and who's not. I can tell you one of the reasons I got into my field, I work generally in social services, and I did so because I saw so many people I went to high school with out on the streets. So Devereaux Center, I think the last time they gave me a number was about 70% of the homeless in our community are long-term residents.
Okay,
So
Captain?
And just along that note, one thing that the homeless work group has asked for is data collection for things just like that. So data collection, so to make sure that we do know what's happening as we develop policy recommendations for the council.
Measure 110 specifically decriminalized user quantities of drugs. In the packet, it labels kind of which of those substances are and the amounts. As far as like drug dealing, as most people think of it, that would still be a crime in Oregon, though there's been lots of not legislative, but case law changes recently that have made that extremely challenging.
All right, Mike Will?
I'm Mike Will. I reside here in Coos Bay, and one of the things that concerns me is the giving the 10-year tax incentives for new development, because we're giving away resources for law enforcement and those other aspects that we have a shortfall on, and the goal of getting to an end goal down the road. But we talk about affordable rent. We gave away property up in the Empire area with the concept of affordable rent, but nobody ever defined what that affordability was. If you look at the way the area here is struggling with income to being able to afford the rents in the area, a large portion of our economy is minimum wage jobs. And if we looked at a 40-hour work week, 52 hours, that's about $26,000. After 16% payroll taxes, that would have a $4,000 liability, leaving them $20,000 to put towards their rent and other expenses. When we consider in the banking's evaluation of 33% to what is affordable for you to get a loan on a home, that brings our cost for a rent to around $600 a month. I don't know about you, but I don't see a lot of $600 a month rents anywhere around here. So giving away incentives, is there something to incentivize them to also create actual affordable rent, not just giving them free money with the token, hey, give us affordable rent on these properties? Because the one in Empire definitely did not do that.
All right, thanks. So I'll start this off. First of all,
And then I can also make a comment as well.
I know, but let's just, since we started down this road, it's going to be hard not to. So it is, first of all, on the tax abatement, these properties right now are not being used. So there's no taxes being generated on them. It's very minimal. So the intent is to develop these properties and also get homes on the market. Right now, we're lacking in the amount of homes that are here. If we increase the amount of homes that we build and have here, it is believed, and this has worked in other communities, that the rents will start coming down because there's a larger volume. So, Roger, did you want to chime in on this at all?
No, Mayor.
Mike, this is, like I said, if we're gonna ask your question, we'll do the answer, but it's not back and forth, okay? So if you want to come back up after everyone else has got a chance, we'll go ahead and do that. Thank you. Roger?
You're correct, Mayor. We're basing this off of a supply and demand issue, and we're trying to address the supply at this point in time. If we can increase the number of housing, we're hoping that the demand and the increased prices that go with high demand will ease.
All right. Anyone else?
I was just going to say one thing that I didn't mention when I opened this is that it's not just Coos Bay, Coos County that has this issue with supply and demand. It's all over the state. And I think Drew gave some statistics before, but 115 housing units are needed right now, and over 600 are anticipated to be needed in 20 years. And I think that number is probably higher at this point. I know that 2 houses on either side of my home sold, one of them sight unseen to somebody that moved into this area and from retirement in less than 24 hours, and 2 days, I don't even think it was publicized on the market on the other side of me. They're being scooped up as quickly as they go on the market. So, supply.
All right, so, and I'm just going to mention, like, Mike, if you want to get a hold of me and have a discussion further, we'll be glad to do it, okay? So, anyway, but we want to make sure everyone gets a chance. Dave Tilton?
Mayor Benetti, members of the City Council, my name's Dave Tilton. I live in Coos County. I practiced law in Coos County for 34 years from 1984 until I retired January 1st, 2019, and I was co-owner of the office building over here. During my entire period of practicing law, I specialized in not only housing law, but the various social security disability programs. And a big change, I started my first 12 years as a legal aid lawyer, and until 1995, people could get disability, supplemental security income, SSI, Title 16, or disability insurance benefits, Title II, even if alcoholism and drug abuse was considered a material contributing factor to their disability. That all changed in 1995 when Congress said you can be as disabled as all get out, but if alcoholism and drug abuse is a material contributing factor, you're not going to get benefits. At that point in time, hundreds of thousands of people were immediately thrown off the rolls. These people were housed. I used to represent them. I've worked with Sister Mary Lettice, who was at St. Catherine's, and she formed Coos Elderly Services. We got them representative payees. They got Medicaid, so they had medical care. And so there's not anything that you can do as a city council to change what Congress does, but you could write a letter to our congressional delegation, Senators Wyden, Merkley, and all the Congress people, and say you might want to reconsider that because those people didn't just disappear. They were all housed, they were fed, and they were in my office complaining about their representative payees who would pay their rent and their utilities for them. One other thing I want to talk about briefly, and I wasn't planning on it, but like when you have foreclosed on houses. I represented the Southwestern Oregon Rental Owners Association for about 20 years, and quite often people will move into the house. Under the Residential Landlord Tenant Act, there's a definition of squatter. They don't have all the rights of a tenant, and I used to go into court on an FED, no notice eviction, get them out of there, and then the sheriff, the civil aspect of the sheriff's department, would remove them. So it's not a foregone conclusion that you can't get them out of there. Actually, that was my squatters. You're supposed to be able to get them out of there. The legislative history indicates that they're not supposed to. But
all right, thank you, Dave. Jan Gordon. Jan Gordon.
I signed the wrong paper, I'm sorry.
Pardon? All right, so Tara Johnson.
I signed the wrong document.
Thought it was a check-in sheet.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Jackie Monson. All right. Tracy Fromm.
Tracy Fromm, live in Coos County. You addressed that there's 49 beds in the jail?
Yes.
Yes, currently.
How many actual beds are there in the jail?
I think there is about 230 beds, 225 beds. Don't quote me on that, but it's over 200 beds.
What could we do to get funding to open up those beds?
I can answer that. So the Coos County Commissioners have been discussing ways to get more funding. There's a couple issues going on. One, there's a lack of funding to get the number of jail beds over 100. And secondly, our jail deputies, our staff, they're one of the lowest paid law enforcement groups in this state. And what's happening is they're having a very difficult time attracting and retaining deputies. Deputies who are willing to come, some don't stay, and they leave for other better paying agencies. And then because they have a lack of staff, they can't keep it open to 100 beds. There's a measure that'll be coming before the voters in June where voters can make a decision. Do they want to pass a levy to provide more money to the county? So one, in part, they can increase salaries, but two, to open up more jail beds up to 150. But that's just going to be a decision by the voters.
Couple things, Roger. Did you say June or November you meant?
November.
November. And I want to reiterate, everyone, that the city of Coos Bay has nothing to do with the operation of the jail. We just utilize that as a service for officers, okay? Say that again?
There's no jail in North Bend.
We don't have jails.
We don't have jails.
No. Well, we don't, ma'am. But anyway, if you want to come up to the mic at your time, you can go ahead. Ralph Moore?
My name is Ralph Moore. I live at 1165 Ferguson, Coos Bay. I have two comments I'd like to make, neither of which have to do with the homeless. And the first one is that I am a former teacher at Marshfield, and I've been in contact with people who are coming here for reunions during the summer. And one thing has come up, a number of them are talking about coming back to Coos Bay. But there is one thing, and why I come to the city, that they are always asking about, and that is the internet connections that we have here are not equal to what connections are in Eugene or Portland. And I like the city, in however you do this, this be one thing that would be very important. And I'm talking about a lawyer from Arizona who wants to escape the heat, another person who works for Tigard who is a musician and is a computer techie, and there's a number of people who would like to come here who are between 45 and 55, but one of the major considerations is the internet connection. My second comment is I have a solution for the library. I think you ought to put the library on West Park Avenue, which happens to be the street that leads into the Coos Bay North Bend Water Board off of Ocean Boulevard. This would satisfy some of the issues of coming closer to downtown. It also is public land, which you have a part of, or some way of doing it. It is called the Coos Bay North Bend Water Board. And it is also developable without any problem. It'd be an easy way of, if you look at the county map, you'll see behind it is a cistern, which obviously drains towards the east. So therefore, the flow should be away from the Pony Slough area. But I think you ought to consider that. The other one that comes from my wife, if you want a library consideration, she would like the library to take over the Blossomville School for 2 years while you build a new library right where it is now. But you start and move it towards across Bennett Street to the south.
Okay.
And I promised her that I would make that comment.
Thank you, Ralph. All right, so the library, we'll be discussing that another issue at another time. All options are on the table, and we'll have future discussions. So the internet, I can't address. I don't know if anyone can. Anyone?
Not
Okay.
on this subject.
Okay, Garrett King?
I think most people are here to,
Yep.
for the homeless.
Hello, my name is Garrett King, and I'm from Coos Bay. I just want to first off thank our police officers. I imagine that these laws that Oregon legislature have enacted are not your favorite. They make your job difficult, and you probably didn't vote for them, and you still have to follow the law, and I appreciate that. It's not easy to do things you don't want to do. I want to thank the city councilors as well for doing everything in your power. You have gotten a lot of grief, I imagine, from various different places, and you have done everything within the law that you can do. And that is what we do in a democracy, is we follow the law, and if we do not like it, we try and change it through democratic processes. Martin Luther King Jr. fought against racism, a much more problematic issue than homelessness, and he did it through democratic processes. And so I just want to, again, thank all of you up here for following the law. And I am a proud Coos Bay resident and happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Kennard? Tracy Pierce? Oh, I apologize. Sorry. Got ahead of the game.
I'm easy to forget. I'm Mike Kennard. I live in Coquille.
That's all right.
I'm one of the candidates for sheriff.
Okay.
One of the things that I didn't hear you talk about that I think would help immensely is a sobering center. I went and looked at the one at Grants Pass. They've got 12 beds. A lot of the calls at Coos Bay, when we're in full operation, are bringing people there intoxicated, and they can't do anything with them. And the sobering center, especially here in this area, would help solve that problem.
All right. So I know it's come up in discussion. Roger or Chief?
I would agree with you. I
Yeah.
think that it's sobering center is much needed in our area.
Especially with the situation with SB, I think it's SB 48.
48, yeah.
Where even when we're getting up to 100 beds or 150 beds, we can't even keep them.
Sure.
We can't, the legislature has made it so that we cannot keep people in jail before they are convicted. So,
okay.
If anyone has any questions, myself and Gabe are back here to answer them afterwards.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you. Roger?
Yeah, so that's a great suggestion, and actually work is being done in our community with a number of agencies in an effort to make that become a reality.
Anyone else want to address it? No. All right, Tracy Pierce?
Hello, my name is Tracy Pierce, and I live in Empire. First, I would like to say thank you. I was recently on a call with someone from out of the area with Energy Trust of Oregon, and they said Coos Bay is one of the primary cities that is doing something in Oregon. Not many are. My concern is about the individuals that are dumping their feces. It's kind of difficult to walk through the streets when I walk my dogs. There's human feces, there's animal feces, all of that kind of stuff from homeless. Is there any way we can put up doggy bag things or some kind of something receptacles where these people have bathroom facilities? Just because I feel like that's hazardous. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, it definitely is a problem, but we have, and the doggy bag thing might be a case, but we do have outhouses, not outhouses, we have facilities around, like on the boardwalk. We try to put them out in different places. I think there's some at the Hollering Place. I'm not sure where else. But when it becomes an issue.
Yeah, we do have bathroom facilities in all the parks, and then we have other locations where we put porta potties up in the downtown area where there aren't public bathrooms.
But it's still an issue that needs more attention, and we agree.
And
Right.
I would just suggest when people see something such as that in the public area to call our dispatch center on the non-emergency line, identify where it's at so that we can notify Public Works to go clean it up.
Shirley Bennell, is that correct?
Hi, Shirley Bennell, a Grateful Lakeside resident, and I wanted to sign up to public comment to first thank everyone involved with this homeless work group. I feel like this is our solution to the whole county. without getting together and starting the conversation, we're pretty helpless, but I feel like there's hope. I hope that all the documents that the homeless work group has presented and started working with council, that they could be findable in one location on the city website so that other communities looking to maybe follow your lead can access the documents easily. And like the Homeward Bound program, if we can get this information out to some of the other areas within the community. I'm making contact with the homeless folks of Lakeside on a daily basis, and I had no idea. I have one in particular that could have really used this program.
Okay.
And we're working extensively with the Forest Service out there in cleanup efforts. And yeah, any suggestions for funding for the dumping of all of the homeless camp stuff that remains would also be greatly appreciated. Thank you for all that you guys are doing.
Thank you. So this will be on our website, am I correct, Nicole?
So currently, the process for ordinances, once they are enacted by council, they're actually codified into what we know as our Coos Bay Municipal Code. So they are out there. They're just not in ordinance format, which we could be happy to share. If anybody has interest, we can get you that format. It's just codified so that it's easier to follow.
In the Homeward Bound, our chief could help you, or Drew, either one. So Shirley, just make sure they get your number, and they'll be glad to reach out to you. Okay? Rob, I'm going to mess this up. Janoski or?
Close enough.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
As soon as you hesitated, I knew it was me.
Okay.
Honorable Mayor, honorable council members, Chief, Captain, thank you for giving us a moment here. I had about a 4-page diatribe to go on, but you've answered a lot of the questions, and now you've posited some other things for me to really look at. Oh, sorry. I'm Rob from Base and Tackle. I own a business in Charleston.
Yeah.
I formerly resided in Coos Bay. Now I'm here as a foreigner who lives in North Bend.
Okay.
You know, I don't like the term homeless, and maybe I'm being overly simplistic, but I have such a hard time because I kind of delineate between homeless and the criminal vagrancy that we see. You know, the homeless problem is a problem. I mean, housing is a problem here. But I don't know if that's really why most of us are here today. I'm talking about the guys that, you know, I have to explain to my little girls, why is that man pooping on the sidewalk? Why is that guy sucking on a meth pipe? That to me is not homeless. Those aren't the homeless folks that are looking for a place. And I think, again, the biggest problem, I think what most of the folks here are today to speak about is that criminal vagrancy that we're talking about. Yeah, your hands are tied. I hate your job for you. I look at it and I get frustrated, and I think sometimes there could be more done, sometimes there can't. One thing that always frustrates me is when I see these folks pushing a shopping cart. And in my mind, the guy that's pushing a shopping cart with a bunch of stuff in it, you know, like stuffed cats and lawnmower parts, and I mean, these people have psychological problems. Some of them are violent, some of them are criminals. But those aren't the people that are going to get a job and be able to live in affordable housing in one form or another. That's never going to happen. But I look at that shopping cart and I think that's a stolen piece of merchandise. Why are we not stopping? And even, I know it's cite and release for everything except for like murder and hostage taking, but why can't we cite them, at least get that system rolling and have that exchange with them and explain it? Maybe y'all do. Tell them like, you can't, but I see a lot of exchanges with multiple agencies where folks y'all in uniform are interacting with them, and then you leave, and then I see the guys push their shopping cart continuing down the street. Every time one of those carts is stolen, our price of groceries goes up, our cost of goods goes up. As we know, those things aren't that inexpensive at all. And I don't know if that's something we can do. You know, you're talking about 20 to 30% of your calls to service are for homeless and vagrant. I mean, that's huge. I did a real anecdotal poll one day, and I just went and confronted a bunch of people, and I kind of picked the worst of the worst that were in my neighborhood. And these folks didn't want to work. They flat out told me so. They didn't want jobs, and most or all of them were convicted felons, many of them of sex crimes, and some of them were child predators. Some of them were sexual offenders towards children. And I've had people reach out to me, quietly in the corrections community and say, yeah, that guy's a real bad guy, but there's nothing we can do about it. And I think that's why we're here. I don't have solutions. I want them gone. Maybe we harass them about the shopping carts and we send them on their way. Maybe that starts the ball rolling. But I think that is the case. The homeless people, the folks that are down on their luck, they're not pooping on the streets. They're not leaving garbage laying in the woods. We're talking about two different things. Maybe I am and nobody else is, and I'm living in my own little world. I don't know. But thank you for your time. And I just wanted to bring that out again. I had a lot of stuff, but you answered a lot of it. But the shopping cart thing, that's a big one for me.
Okay.
Rob?
So,
Mr.
Chief,
Mayor,
you want to address the shopping cart?
I can attest that I have more than once tried to place the shopping cart issue on the homeless work group's agenda, so I'm right there with you.
I can talk a little bit about the shopping cart. So actually, Captain Lindahl has reached out to other law enforcement agencies, other cities, see what type of ordinances they have for shopping carts. He's also scheduled meetings with business owners to address, because ultimately that is private property. That is the property of, let's say, I'll just plug in a store, one of the stores.
Yes, sir. Safeway.
Yeah, okay. So ultimately, that store has to also be basically want to be a victim of that theft. So oftentimes what we find is they don't want to come, they don't want to recover it, or they don't necessarily want to pursue it, they don't necessarily want to have to appear in court, and therefore what we are given is please tell them to return the shopping cart. We don't know if it happens. If it's abandoned, then what we're doing is we're contacting Public Works and we're returning it basically on staff time.
Okay, may I ask one more quick question? Yeah. In relation to the shopping carts, and again, because political climate, and they don't want to rock the boat. They want to make themselves look bad as a corporation, so they don't want to press charges. Can we, as the citizenry, can you as law enforcement say, well, we know what's stolen merchandise anyway, or are they basically going to the point, the corporations, and saying, no, we're letting them have it, it's good? Are they kind of doing that? Are they giving the homeless carte blanche to just take these things?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that. What I would say is, in order for us to require that store to be, let's say, a victim and want to follow through with charges and pursue charges, we would have to have an ordinance in place, and that's what we're looking at right now, exploring that option. That requires that business to be able to come and recover those carts too, and then there has to be some kind of regulation if that doesn't occur. And quite frankly, we may not have the resources to manage a program like that. So there's that issue as well. We got to balance the resources, what we have available to enforce. You put an ordinance in place, you got to be able to have the resources to back that.
So I can tell you this, since this has come up, we'll probably be addressing it at a city council meeting, since you brought it up, and see if there's a way to accommodate this in some fashion that we can afford. So anyway.
It is actually one of the items that the homeless work group is discussing, and will probably likely come back to the council with a recommendation. It's been a tough issue. I know that AYA is using some of their resources and their young people to help collect those. Our community resource officer was just granted a police pickup, because that could be one of the things that will help transport those. Our codes person that was dealing with them, it was a tiny little thing trying to maneuver those. But one of the things, I mean, you clearly stated what I should have stated at the very beginning, is that painting homelessness with a broad brush is just not the right thing to do, because there are different levels of homelessness. There are people that are in unforeseen circumstances that just, were put there. And then there are people that don't want to be. And that's what our law enforcement is dealing with. And that's what you as citizens are dealing with on a constant basis.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Honorable Mayor, honorable council members, Chief, Captain, and everybody that attended today. This is huge. This is democracy in action. Thank you, everybody, for coming out.
Rick Skinner. Rick, how you doing?
Good. It's really hard to follow Rob, Basic Tackle Show, every Wednesday, 3 o'clock. He's got some great ideas. I want to thank everybody for being here and doing this, and quit defunding the police. I mean, please, let's clean up our acts. the biggest thing I think that is out there is that this is not a City of Coos Bay problem. This is a real Oregon problem, and I've watched the city really come up with some good ideas, worked with Roger a lot on South Coast Development Council, and coming up with these properties and putting it back out there where people can use the product, basically. But so what I really want to encourage everybody to do is, we have an election coming up here soon, and most of our problems all start with our governor. And if we don't change that, and we don't need a Tina, okay, we need somebody else that'll be a little more responsible with what we need to do. We're also dealing with a majority in the House, or I should say a super majority in the House and a majority in the Senate that we have to do something with too. They're the ones that are making these problems. So get out and vote. I really want to thank Boomer Wright that is here listening to you, and he's come up with a lot of these ideas. But I'm mad as hell, really, and I'm glad everybody's here to support that. We've heard some voices out there, but we need to be respectful too, so that everybody can have their say. And I'm out of here. Vote in November. I'm Rick Skinner. I'm a City of Coos Bay resident. I've been on a lot of committees. I'd really like to join yours so we can make something happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Susan Foreman.
Hi. Susan Foreman, I'm an Empire resident. I wanted to reiterate my support for the homeless work group. I came to see what the city was doing and what its plans were going forward. I had a couple questions. One, well, I wanted to give my support for the project that was done last year, Coal Bank Village, and the donation of the property to make that happen. And that leads into my second question, is kind of a clarification of the camping ordinance. We come up with reasonable places where people shouldn't be camping. Where can they camp, and do we have enough capacity? You know, does the city or the work group have more plans for that kind of facility to get people on the rolls, people that maybe aren't necessarily going to be without help transitioning into affordable housing? And the other question is, probably on the website, the work group has an update, like successes of, or I can check in with the Devereux Center on their successes in getting people back, getting them into the system. But in the meanwhile, where we stand with capacity.
All right, thank you.
I can take part of that.
Sure.
Coal Bank Village productivity, last time I asked, it was June of this year, I think. They have 19 tiny homes. They had cycled through 63 individuals, and I believe 40 had attained permanent housing. So it's been very successful.
And we do not operate that. That is operated by the Devereux Center.
Yep.
It would almost be impossible for.
Yeah, and that comes to why the city doesn't make those things themselves, is the amount of liability it would incur upon the city. Our insurers would be very angry and drop us, so that would be no good. Other projects, we were able, in coordination with the Devereux Center, to establish some warming center guidelines that gives people a place to go when the weather is inclement, somewhere to be off the street. One of the ordinances we passed early on was to create a camping option for faith-based institutions. There are about 11 that qualify within the Coos Bay city limits based on the codes created as far as zoning. Only one has ever taken us up on it, Harmony United Methodist. We had originally made it so they could have 4 trailers on site. We wanted to raise it to 6, and then the state came back and said, no, in the 90s we restricted religious institutions to 3. So that wasn't helpful. Yeah, those are the two main ones right now.
Maybe
Stephanie,
the
you have
vacant
anything?
property that was just implemented. The city council just implemented a vacant property.
Oh, the 2 acre for the security trailer?
watchman type thing for larger parcels of property, that it will allow, because a lot of private property owners were having to go in and do their own cleanups because they're facing the same situation that we are on our public property. Did you want to address that, Drew, or you want me just to continue?
Yeah, it's pretty short.
Yeah.
If they've got 2 acres of property and they want somebody's security to be to put a trailer on there, they can do that.
And they do have to follow guidelines, so sanitary situations, they cannot dump onto their property, their land. They have to provide certain things that we would expect.
Mayor, if I may, I'd like to provide some supplemental information as to both housing and why don't we create shelters. Many people don't know that all of the property taxes gathered in the city is not enough just to pay for police and fire services. We actually fall well short, and that is consistent with most municipalities in the state of Oregon. Where we make up that difference is usually through franchise fees for those that use the city right-of-ways to conduct business, such as Pacific Power, Spectrum, and other utilities that use that. So there isn't a lot of extra money to undertake, not only to build housing, but to operate housing. It is a community problem, and it's going to take a community solution to solve some of these issues.
All right, Robert Moore?
Robert Moore, City of Coos Bay. Thank you all. Join the other folks that have thanked you for the work that you're doing on this. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the homeless mentally ill, something that I did for a 25-year period, working with the homeless mentally ill before I retired. I do have a permanent housing for homeless mentally ill program that I want to share with you, but it will take way more than 2 minutes that you're going to give me to talk, so maybe we can, maybe I'll get a chance on the rebound to cover that. What I've heard tonight from Drew Farmer about the state of Oregon in terms of its horrible position of being the 51st in the nation dealing with mental health issues, what the nation has done in terms of dealing with mental health issues. We have this problem of as many street people as we have because they are expendable. We have made a decision as a nation. We have made a decision in cutting off Social Security for mentally ill people that have drug or alcohol problems. These are expendable people. That's the long and short of it. So if we want to solve the problem, we're really dealing with something very, very difficult. And there has to be a change in the community's attitude about the value of the lives of these people. You know, basically we can't just shoo them out of town. Every person has to live somewhere. If they're not going to live here, they're going to be in another town. So it's an ongoing issue that I think is going to take a lot of work. Comment on the sobering center. We had a sobering center. We had a sobering center and Community Action ran it. It no longer exists. It absolutely should be brought back. We had a permanent housing for homeless mentally ill program, and it no longer exists. That should be brought back. The real issue there is that you cannot deal with putting homeless mentally ill people into regular housing. It's not going to work. This is a staff-intensive, very labor-intensive issue, and I'll talk more about that when I have a chance to discuss that program with you. I'm really excited to see tonight. I've been coming to these council programs for almost 50 years, and I have to say this is as full a house as I've ever seen. And I appreciate that a lot of the people that have spoken to you tonight tonight are from Coos Bay, but it made me curious. How many people in the room are actually reside in Coos Bay? If you raise your hand. That's great. That's awesome. Thank you all for being here. And thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
So Bob, I'm sure that Stephanie or Drew or both would be willing to talk to you, especially since you're on the homeless group, okay?
Community Action
Yeah.
ran that program.
Okay. Will Waker?
I'm curious.
I don't have a solution. I
I
don't
wish
have
you
a
did.
solution. I'm so sorry. Anyway, Mayor Benetti, city councilors, our wonderful police officer, the best in the world by far, our manager, attorney. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. What I'd like to say is, wow, you guys have really done a lot of preparation. The information tonight was incredible. It's a lot of stuff I kind of knew, but thank you so much. That was a lot of wonderful information. What I would like to say is I've been in workforce for 40 years. I tried to retire 3 years ago for one day and got super bored, so here I am again. But I would like to say, regardless of how you get on that mess, whether it's your own decision, bad decisions, bad life, or with circumstances beyond what you could have done, it's got to really suck to be on those streets. It's just got to be so hard for the families of these people, for our fabulous police officers here, and all the things that we endure. I appreciate very much. We live in a free society, so if you don't want help, you can say, I don't want help. You know, we live in a place where people make their own decisions. But I would like to say, as being in workforce for 40 years, there's 1,000 success stories that I can tell you about younger people, our neighbors in difficult circumstances. Maybe they have had some trouble in the law or something, but I've been able to help them, and you know what? They're my professional peers. They run businesses in our community, and with a little help, they can go a long way. But they have to want to help. But I want to just thank our city council and our officers for a great presentation this evening, and we just need to keep working, and thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Matt Wilbanks.
Good evening, Matt Wilbanks. I'm homeless, but I'm a long-term Coos Bay resident. I have to say I'm a little discombobulated about what I'm going to say here. I wasn't really sure coming in here. I'm one of the primary people that runs the Coos County Neighborhood Watch. I've got a lot of long experience with a lot of the mentally ill people around here, not from necessarily law enforcement, but private security. Just last night, I was up at midnight patrolling around Empire. And many of you know Joey Fullerton. Yep. I think everyone here knows Joey. Joey was camped out on the front step of Fastenal, a business that my employer uses all the time. We've been given permission to chase people off from that property because it's become a serious problem. I spent almost 25 minutes getting Joey to leave because I didn't want to waste the chief's time or his officer's time, because frankly, they shouldn't be social workers. They're law enforcement officers. They're here to enforce the law. And it's a little surprising when I walk in here and I see this labeled as a homeless mental illness meeting, when the gentleman who prompted this entire thing brought it up as a crime issue. Now, I know there's a connection between the two. Obviously, if you're mentally ill, you don't know what you're doing at many times. You're going to commit crime, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not intentionally. But the reason the majority of the people are here is because of crime, okay? I don't care if you're homeless. I'm homeless, okay? When I lost my job in 2020, I moved into my van, my minivan. I've lived in a minivan on and off for the last almost 2 years. I'm homeless. You don't see me crapping on the sidewalk. Okay? Granted, I'm not mentally ill. Okay? There is that. Well, some people here might think I am. But I obey the law as best I can. That brings me to another point, and I'll finish real quickly here. Morality and legality are not synonymous, okay? At one time in this country, it was illegal to own people of another color. We fought a civil war over that. Democracy didn't solve that issue. Fighting did, okay? In other countries, I'll just say Germany, for example, what Hitler did was actually illegal in his country, as sick as that is. A lot of people don't realize that. They passed laws to allow him to do the evil that he did. I no longer care what's legal. I care what's moral, and I expect the city council and the rest of the city employees to do what's moral.
We're a nation of law.
Okay, Emmanuel Kelly? Is there Emmanuel Kelly? All right, thank you. Carla Dunlap, is that correct? Is there a Carla? Pardon? No?
Miss Dunlap, is that you? Okay. No, that's her.
All right, I don't know. Something Johnson, is it Ron Johnson?
Signatures get a little tricky.
Yes. Steve, yes, Steve Sander?
Where'd Steve go? Oh, there he is.
Hi, I'm Steve Sandin. I live in North Bend. I'd just like to say, you know, I know that people are really upset about the crime and the camping and that type of thing. I know I have, my car has been broken into before, and I have people camping down my street on these RVs that are just, quite a few of them, they just look terrible, you know, they're not even hardly usable. So I understand everybody's frustration. I don't think North Bend even has a camping ordinance yet. One of the tough things about doing something like that is wherever they put it, everybody's going to get upset about that too. So what Bob was saying, Bob Morse, about changing the attitude really needs to happen, I think, to make this work. There has to be some type of compromise. I do believe that a lot of things have changed. I can see the city doing quite a bit. A few years ago, they weren't as anxious to help with this problem, and now I see a big difference. I just want to say, like the housing, for example, when we build more housing in our community, it makes room for psychiatrists and all these things that are very, very hard to find. There's a huge workforce shortage right now, and this community can't attract enough folks to provide services that they need. So I just wanted to say I'm encouraged by what's happening. I know that people are upset. As far as Measure 110 goes, I have never met anybody that admits to voting for it. That's where it decriminalized drugs. However, I will say that I don't know how long they've been writing these tickets, but the state has not, our organization received some funding on it. We got a contract yesterday, so we could technically start now, but there hasn't been any time to see what the effects will be of that. It could be bad, it could be good, but there hasn't been time yet to see. So I appreciate your time, thanks.
Thank you. Oh, gosh.
Oh, that's Cameron.
Cameron?
Cameron Stringfield. I live in Coos Bay, but that's only for another day because of this housing issue, I've lost my housing here, and I have to move out. And I know a lot of people are going to be happy about that, but honestly, it's not just my problem, and it can happen to a lot of people in here. A lot of people tonight have came up and thanked you all. I'm not going to do that because I think thus far what you've handed us is failure. And you can pull out little metrics about, oh, some people from the Coal Bank Village finally got their permanent housing. You can pull out a whole bunch of metrics about what you've been doing. So far, I think that what you've done is failure. Let's look at the fact that people that get homeless, people that lose their housing. The system has failed them. They haven't done anything to actually fail themselves. And so I also think, too, that one of the things that I want to say right here is that the sentiment that I've seen in this community and that I've seen in this room tonight is shameful. I've seen fascists that I know being clapped in this room tonight, or, being clapped for in this room tonight because they go ahead and give these suggestions such as take their shopping carts away, get them arrested more, harass them, all these things. Maybe the solution is evident in the term itself, homeless. They need homes. They need housing. And they don't need housing in 3 or 4 or 5 years. They need housing soon. Soon enough that they can be able to put their kids in a house before they get into school or before they get out on their own. And it's easy for a lot of you to say that these solutions don't come overnight when tonight you've got a place to sleep in. You've got a home to go to. You can say that these things don't happen quickly because you're not short on time. And, a lot of people can go ahead and downplay the issue of homelessness, but I know people who are homeless and who have been homeless. Matt Wilbanks can come up here and act as the token to speak for that community, but he doesn't. We need here is public housing. Can you do it? Maybe you can't. Can you do it from the state? Maybe you can't. Maybe you need to go to D.C. Maybe you need to actually get to these legislators, tell them, look, we're spending how many hundreds of billion dollars on war, killing poor people in different parts of the global south, when we could be building houses for our people right here in America? Maybe that's what you should focus on. We don't need committees and everything to wait and placate the community for years on end about what we could do in the future. We need actual solutions, and I don't think it's as hard to achieve them as you're putting on. And I also want to let you know that it's not just affecting the homeless. It'll affect the working class, because the working class, I know a
Cameron,
lot of people from the hospital.
You need to wrap this up.
I am going to.
Okay.
Because I'd like to wrap this up and get out of this community because I'm
please do.
ashamed. But there are people that I know that work at the hospital, that work at different places in this area, that come to this community, that want to work here, want to be a contributing member, but they can't find housing. I couldn't find housing when I got kicked out of here.
Thank you, Cameron.
And so,
thank you.
bring us solutions.
Xavier? Is there a Xavier? Xavier? Oh, sorry. Thank you.
I'm Xavier. I live in Coos Bay. I've lived here for around 5 years now. And what was said earlier about there being a distinction in the issues that people are talking about, crime and homelessness, is correct. Because as the police captain earlier had said, the majority of homeless people are not criminals. However, the thing that we need to consider is the fact that regardless of that, the criminal issue is easier to solve when these social issues that exist are solved as well. However, it's also true that what was just said, that what you have brought is failure, is accurate. The only people who I hear singing your praises are the people who are far enough removed from the issues that it doesn't directly affect them, whether it be property crimes or whether it be directly experiencing homelessness. The amount of people in this room has been referred to as the success of democracy, but I don't see smiles on these faces. I don't see people who are happy to be here. This is a representation of how far our democracy has fallen, of the problems that are facing our country. And the truth is that I don't believe that y'all have your interests firmly rooted in solving them. Because when you issue citations to people, when you put people in prisons, none of us see that money. The people who get their property destroyed don't see that money. Why do y'all need it? Y'all aren't the ones getting your property destroyed. It doesn't go to the people who are actually victims. And it clearly isn't going to actually solve the issues that are making people homeless in the first place. I've researched the history of Coos County, and any honest look at its history will see that the last several decades have been economic downturn, loss of jobs, loss of housing, increased rent, and stagnant wages. And personally, I think that every single person who is a leader in this community should be disgusted and ashamed of themselves for allowing this community to fall so far. One that is beautiful and has people who clearly care about their neighbors and their loved ones.
Katie Loy.
Hello, this is my first time addressing you guys, so
Can
thank
you
you
speak
for
and
having
try to
this.
get a little bit closer to the mic, please? Thank you.
Okay, it's my first time, so thank you for having this discussion. I've been affected by the homeless, the crime, the drug, and all that stuff. I live in Empire, and pretty much every day I have to make sure nobody's trying to walk out in the street and me trying to hit them. I've found needles. It's just a dark gloom every time I leave home, and I see just sadness and despair. And a lot of them I know are drug addicted. I know some of them are mentally ill, and it's really sad. And actually, on my way here, one of the most well-known homeless guys was jaywalking from the Devereaux Center across the street at the Y in a wheelchair, stopping traffic. And I've almost hit him several times. I know your guys' hands are tied, and as you said, you can't do things because you're legally limited or there's a potential for lawsuits. And I'm just wondering, is there a way for the city or even a bunch of cities suing the state of Oregon for failing us all? So it's an idea. Because, I voted against the decriminalization because I knew there was not enough drug counselors, treatment facilities. It was just a golden ticket to give people extra excuses and passes. I left my previous relationship because he was a drug addict. He was addicted to pills. He would sell off his food stamps. He would lie. He would manipulate. I actually developed an anxiety disorder because of it. So then he would steal my anxiety medication. So it's all overwhelming and everything like that. And something needs to be done. And then also, I've been a renter for a long time in this community, and it's very hard to save up 3 times the money you need to move in. Property management places will charge you anywhere from $25 to $50 per application, even to tour a place. So it really eats away those savings. It's hard. And if you guys want to do more development, I would say across the range from low to medium. I can only afford an apartment. We can't even save enough money yet to buy a house. And then, even then, housing prices are ridiculous. So I just want to say I'm frustrated. And I'm glad you have this meeting. I just want to air it out. And I want to thank Roger Craddock for showing up to the Empire cleanup. I saw him there getting his hands dirty. It's a big mess out there. And for one, it's an environmental hazard. You can smell, it smells like sewage out there. And something needs to be done. That's a great park. It needs to be taken care of. And well, the whole area of Empire needs to be taken care of. The city sidewalks look great, except now they're all covered with weeds. So I would just like more community pride. I know you guys are restricted, as you say, on the budget, and that really sucks. But reach out to the community for more volunteer opportunities. I think would be great.
Thank you.
So that's it. Thank you.
So the topic is suing the state. 2 hospitals did it now, and they actually succeeded against the state hospital for it not doing its duty. I like that solution personally. Legislative aspect, that would be a recommendation I would have, because put together even all the people in this room, it'd be a little tricky to sue the state. But we can always work with our legislators. There's always another legislative session coming. Last time I was trying to work on this, I only kind of included people that were in the circle of mental health aspects, the hospital, Coos Health and Wellness, but this time I'll try and, as we progress, as we get closer, post more on my council Facebook. That way we can involve more of the public. We're all time restricted, but we can see what we can do.
All right, Charlotte. There we go. Finally, huh?
Thank you for having
Can you pull the mic down and speak into it, please? Thank you.
I think that I will probably turn around and face the audience because they're the ones that I really would like to address.
Oh, there you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've heard the city's position, and we have no quarrel with what's going on because laws are laws. We also know that everybody has to be somewhere. What we can do in this room with these people is we can do some things on our own to help with this problem. We've heard tonight that 30% or thereabouts of the people that use Devereaux are not local people. There are people in this community on the SNAP program, which is Supplemental Nutritional Aid, that are having to use it as not supplemental, but the whole bit of their food because the rest of their money is going for the rent and their utilities. And yet we have at the Devereaux Center a flashing board that says we need pork roast, we need beef roast, we need a lot of different things like that. Hamburger, pancake mix. Our homeless people seems to fall into two groups. One, those that are really looking for houses, and the rest of them that are just transit and are happy here. Like the couple from Arkansas who says, we love it here. The weather's beautiful, there's all this camping, and the Devereaux Center serves our needs. They get SNAP. I'd say that you and I can boycott every store in town that feeds the Devereaux Center anything except rice and beans, and let their people use their SNAP proceeds for real food. That's one thing we can do, is we can boycott those people who think that those transient people, 30%, are more important than our local people that need mental health and so on. Number two, people, is that we can picket that place until they get something in order that says no meals until the whole street, both sides, for 2 blocks is cleaned up. That place looks like a every business along there tries to keep their place clean. And there's no reason that they can't keep that place clean too, including dog poop on the sidewalks. 3, something else that we can do, and I'm prepared to do tonight, is that we can sign a petition to have the city at their next council meeting approve opening up that 2.14 acre piece of property they have next to the Dodge dealership and offer that on a strictly temporary basis to all these RVs that are parked on our streets, when the Port Police Department are out there moving them from point A over 2 blocks, and then 2 days later, they're back where they started.
All right, okay.
Serves no purpose
Charlotte?
whatsoever at all.
Can you wrap it up, please? Time's up.
So, time's up.
All right.
I
Thank
have
you.
petitions if anybody would like one.
Okay, so Jane Schultz.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you, officers, for what you do for our community. Your job does suck right now. And actually, being a resident of Coos Bay kind of sucks right now, too. I live in Coquille, and I live outside of town on Fairview Road. And even way up that mountain, heading toward Laverne Park, we've got problems. I've done cab driving, school bus driving, caregiving, a lot of different jobs. I'm currently a transit driver. There's loopholes to the Homeward Bound program. I mean, just today I had people get on the bus with coupons from a clinic. I was abused by these people. I had to actually have my boss have a cop come to the bus to remove these people. One of the women was so close to my face after removing her mask, she was spitting on me because I didn't think it was okay for them to be drinking on my bus or the bus stops. Most of my nice elderly people who used to ride don't anymore because they're afraid. I've seen the bushes torn out of areas that used to be beautiful because the homeless wouldn't stop being naked and doing things together and pooping and peeing. It's become terrible. And I don't have a solution other than there needs to be checks and balances with the Devereaux Center. How many sex offenders have I brought on my bus and just cringing? You know, they might tell me their name. I go Google it later and I feel sick. I have children and I brought them to our community because that's my job. I'm a bus driver. I work with wonderful people, you know, who want to give back to the community. You know, we're just transit drivers. We want everyone to be happy, homeless alike. I've been homeless and it was terrible, but the difference between the dirt bags I see every day and myself is I clawed my way out of it and I gave back. And the people I see, some of them are good. They get help, they move on, they do great things. I see people who are homeless, who live in the state parks or on Social Security. They're in a bad situation, but they're clean, kind people who get harassed by other transients. And all I know is something's got to happen here because we're all in trouble. Our children are in trouble. I can't even let my 10-and-a-half-year-old son walk downtown in Coquille to go thrift shopping by himself for an hour because I'm afraid of who will approach him or him being snatched off the street. I was at the post office parking lot one time. I had somebody try and open my car door. I found out later he was a sex offender who had been booked and released several times. I'm sad for you guys that your hands are tied because I'm sure that you guys would love to put them in jail and keep them there, but you can't. I don't know how everyone else is feeling inside. All I know is for the ones that really want help, I would love to help them up and get them out of homelessness. For the ones that just want to take and steal and steal and take, we've got to get them the hell out of here. You know, and I don't know much about politics. I vote. You know, I've seen highly functioning drug addicts, and I've also seen people who were considered great people who were terrible people. It's not a mental health issue because there's highly functioning mentally healthy people. It's really a good versus evil. And I don't want to see anybody hurt. I don't want to see anyone suffer. But today I was afraid, and I was very thankful for the very prompt response of the police department when they came. However, people don't even get on my bus with their kids anymore. It's sad. I would love to see all of us feel safe again. Some of the nicer homeless people that just travel us about because I like to travel and this, that, or the other, I would like to see them feel safer. But right now, we just have this, like, people coming from all over. Half of the people that are coming down here are from Portland, they're from LA, they're from Sacramento. You know, I'm an implant myself. I came here to get away from all that. You know, I've been here for many, many years, and I'm just seeing it like deja vu, like, wait a minute, what's happening here? And I don't want to take up very much of your guys' time, but, you know, we need to start holding certain agencies accountable. If they're giving people rides home, who are they? Are they on parole for some reason? Are they escaping? I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't mean to bother you. I see
but
you're
no,
annoyed
you're
with
not
me.
bothering us, but the time's up and there's other people that
is
want to
my
talk.
time up? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
all right.
Thank you, folks.
You're welcome. Linda Johnson. Linda Johnson? No? Oh, sorry.
Must be the last one.
Well, there's some more, I'm
Is
sure,
there a
that might
few
want
more?
to speak.
Okay.
Oh, I should have recognized you. I
Hi.
apologize.
Couple things. The homelessness. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Linda Johnson. Hi, I'm from Coos Bay. I'm mainly going to address the crime and drugs just briefly. As the last lady said, I feel really, really unsafe. I've never felt unsafe in a community until now. And I've never felt like caring in a community until now. And I don't most of the time, but sometimes I'm glad I am. Having said that, I understand, and this is, I just want to put it out there. Vote. The levies, this isn't addressing the council, but folks vote. The levy, when it comes due and when we have a choice on voting, the officers can't take them anywhere if there's no jail space, there's no staff. So that was the first thing. Measure 110. Is there a time period needed before a ballot measure could be brought? Is there a time period? Has the
No.
city ever, okay.
So the only way a ballot measure can be reversed is by getting a referendum that means enough signatures and putting it back on the ballot.
Okay, I understand
and,
that.
having it
Who,
defeated, or you can go to the legislature and ask maybe there's some amendments they can put in.
who was
but
allowed to initiate such a thing?
Anyone is.
The council could?
No, the people have to get enough
The
signatures.
people.
Council can't just initiate.
Not the people, I mean, excuse me, not the council as a unit, but
body.
a citizen.
Right. Citizens
Okay.
have to get together and get enough signatures and get a ballot referendum and put it on a state issue. And you can
Okay.
call, I don't know, the state elections, they'll be able to tell you how many signatures you need and for what issue that you want to do, and then help you draft a.
Side note, is the council as citizens allowed to participate in such a thing?
We can sign it, sure.
Okay. Is legal able to advise on such a thing?
No.
Okay, so it'd be up to one of us or some of
Right.
us.
And then there's a county elections official, I think they would handle the state issue also, or handle the state one, yes.
Okay. To me, it seems like that's something that has to happen. I guess if we wait for a governor to get elected in or such, that maybe
But the
they bring
governor's
it.
not going to be able to still change this. It has to be a vote
Has
of
to
the
come
people.
from us.
Yeah, right.
Okay. There you go. Okay,
Right.
that was it.
All right, thank you. Okay, so that's everyone on the list. So is there anyone in the back that wants to make a comment? Yes, come on up. You've been standing patiently, so.
Somewhat patiently, I'm trying.
Okay.
My name is Jody Hoffman. I live on Fossil Point, and I remember the first time I came to this town, I stopped at your restaurant. That was the first place I went. But the first time I spoke at this meeting was when Agents of Chaos, one of which I already spoke, came up here and was screaming F the police here at the City Hall. And I came here and apologized to you guys for that because I was part of that group until I started pulling that stuff. Anyways, I'm a ham radio operator. I listen to ham radio frequencies all around the world. I also listen to the local, well, mostly the sheriff's department because I live in the county, and I hear the officers on there, they're pretty good about having a calm tone and everything on the radio, but, you hear an officer, oh, he just got this guy, he has a homicide warrant. Oh man, that he was a good caller. They're good at spotting suspicious activity and everything. They get these guys. The other counties where the warrant is, they won't take them. Our jail won't take them. The guy's got a homicide warrant. They got no choice but to let the guy go. So they cite him. They give him a court date, and the criminals know this. In other counties, they know that. They know if they come here, it's a revolving door. They're just going to get a citation. As long as they don't resist arrest or something, they aren't going to jail. They know that. So nobody needs to bust them here. We're drawing them here with our system. It's what we're doing. And the crime is going through the roof here. We're getting a criminal element here. You're quoting statistics. I don't know what the statistics are and everything increasing, but the community's seeing it. Common sense tells us something's wrong. We need to fix something.
All right, thank you. That's why I would suggest, and it was brought up earlier, that you need to vote on the levy for the jail. You really need to think about it. Right now, the way it is, it's very difficult for our officers to proceed and take care of the issues. Anyone else in the back? Come on up. I'll get to you, ma'am. I'm just going to get the one standing in the back first. Yes?
My name is Tim Stillian. I've lived here my whole life. I'm 65 years old. My parents grew up here most of their life. We have a business in Empire, and regrettably right now. Today was a really day to get me to speak here. This is not comfortable for me.
Oh, it's all right.
But when I have patrons come to my business and they want me to stand outside while they walk in my business, and they feel like they're threatened by these people, that's way gone past, this is baloney. We are allowing this to happen. There's got to be some form of remedy to stop this stuff. There's got to be some accountability, not only by them, but everyone here. You swore an oath to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights to uphold our rights. Everyone has rights, but when they're in violation of law, there needs to be some accountability to that. When you're threatening or intimidating people in public, why do I have a business here? You want to buy my business so I can move along? I mean, nobody in Empire could sell their business probably because nobody wants to have a business out there. We're trying to make the place clean and better. But it seems like everything we do, it just one step forward, two steps back. And pretty soon, they're sleeping on my front door. I'm cleaning up poop and urine and needles almost every day on my property. People come in there with kids. Oh, Mommy, look, there's a needle on the gravel. Oh, what? This is sickening. And yes, it's a problem, and I feel for people that have a problem. But we need to get some mental health evaluations of these people. Who can hold a job? Who can't? Those people need to go and be taken care of somewhere because they're not benefiting by the Devereaux Center. It's the Enabler Center. Those people have done, I've seen people that on the street for 2 or 3 plus years. I know a couple of them are 4.0 students in school. And why are they on the street? Because they choose to be. Why are we enabling them? They're giving them clothes and food, but they're doing nothing. They're just wandering the streets, causing problems, screaming and yelling because they're strung out on drugs. Something's got to be done. And if it was on your front door, I guarantee you, none of you people have people in sleeping bags on your front door in the morning, do you? How would you like to do that every morning? Get up and somebody's there and you've got garbage everywhere and you got to clean it up. I got to pay somebody to do it myself. It's never happened before. This is really outrageous. And there's probably a lot more I could say, but something's got to take place or there's going to be some real problems because people are fed up to the max. I'm done. So if the police can't do it, I'm going to have to enforce the law, aren't I? If you aren't going to do it, then you're forcing me to do it. So am I going to be in violation of law, standing up for my rights, defending my business or my life or my customer's life? This is where it's gone. So it's just getting worse. The last couple of years, it's gotten worse and worse and worse. If I could sell my business, I'd do it today. But no one will pay me because they said you'd have to give it to me. Nobody wants to be out there. It's sickening. It's very sad. So hopefully there can be some solutions done. And I do commend the police. They do what they can do. But when it comes to their oath, they have a right to do that. And if the law isn't constitutional, then it's not a law, right? It has to be done. The law, the Constitution is a Bill of Rights. This is a republic, not a democracy. We need to start standing up for we the people, not you. You are a servant. So you need to start standing up for our rights and do something for the money we pay you. Our tax money is going nowhere. It's doing nothing positive. I see nothing in that positive. I really don't. I'd like to say something positive, but it's really hard to in this current form.
Well, first of all, we don't get paid a dime, and I don't think that we ever will. So we're not doing it for the money, believe me. And we're trying to do what we can. We're limited what we can do. That's why we made this presentation. Can things be better? Absolutely. Can we get there? We hope. But we still have to follow, as you said, we uphold the oath of the Constitution and the state laws. And the state laws have been stated here. And I know it's frustrating, and I know it's upsetting. And if we can come to a resolution, we're listening for ideas, we'll try to accept them. Well, but that's the bottom line.
If you're directly addressed the police chief, what's the answer to that? Do we get to take this into our own hands, or how do we fight this when it comes to our door?
Sir, just come up and give us your name. Come up, give us your name, and where you reside.
My name is Samuel Adams, and I live in Coos County. So this morning, I go to work. I got to chase homeless people off my property. Why? Like, at what point, when they get violent with me, do I get to get violent back? I don't understand the problem. Like, it's everywhere. All these people get to deal with it all the time. I get to explain to my 8-year-old daughter why a guy's crapping on the street by Fred Meyer's. That's awesome. Let me tell you, I enjoy that. We're done. We're fed up. Like, I don't know what recourse we have as citizens other than to come here and listen to your ranting about nothing getting done and get to go home and face it again tomorrow. We're done. We're fed up. And like, am I wrong? Who else is here? Like, okay. Right? I'm not the only one here, and I know I'm riled up, and I know whatever. We've had enough. And I don't know what we can do. What is our recourse? You're going to say laws and rules, and they're victims and blah, 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 blah. Get them off the streets, man.
We can't.
Or we're going to have to.
Well, Chief, and anyone else want to address it?
Basically, what I would say to that is you need to go and you need to exercise your rights as a citizen, and you need to vote to change laws, to get.
For what?
For trespassing.
No, sir. Stop. Wait. You got, wait, please. Look, we're not going to let you sit there. Do you want to come up and make a comment? Sis, do you want to come up and make a comment?
You said for what? You asked the audience a question?
No. I was referring to the individual that was up here. Now, you want to come up and make a comment?
I would.
Then come on up. Come, no. If you want to make a comment, please come up. If not, then we're going to continue on with comments.
Mayor Benetti, while he's coming up, can I just make one comment? We are also, no, come up. We are also facing this. I'm a resident of Empire, and I live on South Boston. So we're not up here, unfortunately, separated by this. We're facing the same thing that you're facing as citizens. We're citizens as well. The only difference is we've been elected to try and make a difference.
That is the difference, though.
Can I make a comment on the
Yes, go
citizen's arrest?
Thank you.
I'm just asking, are you calling the police and the police are not responding? Are we making an arrest? Would it not be the same as a citizen arrest if a law enforcement officer shows up?
So there's someone walking down the street with a shopping cart. It's obviously stolen. It says Safeway all over the side of it. Someone calls in to your dispatch. They say, there's someone committing a crime. It's stealing. You guys show up. What do?
You want to come up and make your comment, and then we'll address it.
Okay,
but we're not going to...
We're not the only ones that we also are televising this online as well.
Just come on up and make the comment, and we'll respond. But we're not going to have this back and forth like this, as I asked earlier.
So yes, we would respond. We would respond and we'd investigate it. And more likely than not, they would be issued a citation in lieu of custody.
Okay, so the question was citizen's arrest, because I've done that. I've called for the shopping cart, and I can tell you for a fact, you haven't done it. Maybe not you specifically, I'm saying you as the police, whether it's Coos Bay, North Bend, County Sheriff, they don't do anything. They tell the person to return the cart. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they make up a bullshit story that it's, oh, they have permission, or I bought this cart, something. You don't do anything, because I have called. So the citizen's arrest question is serious. Can I arrest this person? Because I'm witnessing them walk off of Safeway property with a cart.
Well,
Can I arrest them and bring them to City Hall?
I would suggest that you contact the property owner and make sure that they are willing and would want you to pursue charges against their property.
So if I go to a Safeway manager and say, would you pursue charges if someone steals something from your store, and I have that on video that they say yes, what are you going to do?
We're going to respond out there. We're going to take the case and take the person in custody.
Okay, anyone else with comments? You already had yours.
Oh, that's bullshit, man.
Oh, now you're going to come up and make a talk, huh?
I'm curious, what do you think happens after a citizen's
He was
arrest?
commenting on hooting and hollering.
Okay, this is going to
may
be,
or may
now
not
after you
be-
make this comment, no more. You got 2 minutes.
Well, I'm not agreeing to that.
Well,
Anyways.
I'm sorry you don't.
So my name is David Milliron from Coos Bay. So anyways, you got me all mad and fired up. Now I don't know what to say about all the stuff I wrote down. Anyways, everyone's mad. Like, you set up this meeting to tell us what the problem you have, that you can't do this and you can't do that, and then what you are doing, ordinances, blah, blah, blah. But it came about because somebody at another meeting was really mad. Like all these stories you've heard about people having to deal with the crime, not homelessness. We don't care if someone wants to play Huck Finn and go down the river in a raft and camp in the woods, no one cares. It's when you litter the woods. It's when you're camping in Empire Lakes, throwing garbage all around. It's when there's needles everywhere. It's when you're camping in an RV and like leaving, go to Safeway, go to the one in Empire, I think, or maybe that's North Bend. Anyways, they leave the stuff on the sidewalk. I'm sure you've seen this.
It's littering. If I toss something out of my car, it's littering. Like the shopping carts down the street, that's theft. These are crimes. We don't care if they're homeless or not. I don't care if they live in a mansion or in a van or in the woods. No one cares about that. But you're not giving us an opportunity. You're giving us 2 minutes to talk to you and tell you what our ideas are, our solutions. But you're telling us it's a complicated problem that requires all these things to be solved. How are we supposed to give you ideas in 2 minutes? So what you really need to do is have a brainstorming meeting. Not a meeting where you guys tell us all these excuses. You need a brainstorming meeting, and then just start right away with these people's comments. Don't make them sit for an hour and a half listening to all this crap. It's crap, I'm sorry. It's just stuff you should have done or didn't do or can't do, whatever. And there's like 10 people who left really mad in the beginning because that's all they're hearing. And yeah, they might have just shouted something.
Wrap it up.
You didn't get to hear
Time's up.
their ideas because you were just talking and talking and talking.
Okay,
So-
your time's up.
So you wanted some ideas.
Look, you can give it, if you want to submit your ideas in writing, be glad to.
I'll do
If you want to
that.
contact me,
The
my
other
numbers.
thing I'd like to address is you're not thinking forward.
Okay.
What happens when
Sir?
there's gangs here?
All right, you can contact
What
us.
happens when the
Your
crime
time's
gets
up.
out of hand and someone like the other gentleman does something?
Let's take a break. I need a break. I'm done. Let's take a break for 5 minutes.
So you don't want to hear what people have to
Sir,
say.
we're not going to
You want to be able to talk for as long as you want and then give everybody else 2 minutes.
Sir, you can contact me and you can write your issues, and we'll be glad to hear them. But I'm not going to listen anymore. There's more people who want to talk.
That's crap, man.
Well, I'm sorry.
You guys are full of shit. You're not doing
Thank
anything.
you.
And like everybody else has
Thank you.
said, it's going to start getting out of hand.
Thank you.
People are going to start taking matters into their own hand,
You're done.
and it's going to get crazy.
You're done.
Why would you want that?
Contact me if you want.
Check left, bud.
What would you do?
All right, who's next? Yes, come on up.
I didn't think I'd speak because there was such a long list. But as the meeting went on, thank you guys. I mean, you've handled this good. Thank you for not shutting it down. I've gone to other meetings, and that was their first excuse, and they were exit stage right. I had a couple of different issues I had found. On your cost of paying rent or housing at 50% from people, is that rent, is that before or is that after all the food stamps, the assistance, the Section 8, the medical assistance and all that? And what renter would possibly rent to someone who couldn't do it? But a lot of us, if we want something, we work for it. And so we just go out and do it. Otherwise, we live within our means. I don't get food stamps, but I'm on a limited income. As far as hospitals go and the staffing, they get rid of these stupid vaccine mandates. A lot of people wouldn't have quit their jobs, and they'd be working happily. Now they've got their hands tied. They've taken away their own choices of what they can do with their bodies. As far as, I was at a meeting the other day, and there was a discussion about a lack of public defenders. And that's one reason why we're not arresting people. It's not just because of the beds. I mean, to me, a lot of it is like a dull moment, you know. But I had heard there are no public defenders because there's some issue with contracts with the judges. And one particular judge is kind of holding that up somewhat. That needs to be addressed because otherwise we could have people facing charges more instead of just released. I get really tired of homeless being, oh, poor, pitiful people. We should all have a heart. Well, if none of us had any inclination to work and better ourselves, we'd be homeless too. But I used to take in homeless people. I learned a lot. I learned a lot from those people. I also, mostly what I learned is you can't classify them all in one category. They are all totally different. Some of them, it is their lifestyle of choice. I resent enabling. Some of them, they are snowbirds. They literally go to where they get the most Social Security or benefits during the seasons. They go to state. Those are their choices. Why am I enabling these people? And as far as a lot of the drugs and different other things, I feel all we're doing
Can you wrap it up,
is
please?
enabling. One more question. Also, the comment was made on people with 2 acres and they could do land and whatnot. Well, I know if they're building places on properties next to yours, you get a say in what happens. Are these people going to get, are the neighboring property owners going to have a say on whether they're now invaded?
The 2 acres was actually for a security guard.
Right.
I don't
It's
recall
like a
the perimeter.
watchman, a 24-hour watchman, so
Well,
they would be probably
They better
screened.
be staked out of my home and my front door if that's happening in my neighborhood.
And this was at the
Anyway,
request
thank you
of the
very
neighbors.
much.
All right, thank you.
Those are some
Did-
issues
did we
that
get
I
your
really
name,
feel
ma'am?
need to be addressed.
Okay.
And I can't see, why should we work and enable other people?
All right,
Did we
thank
get
you.
your name?
Oh, yes.
Cheryl Edwards, and I live in Empire too, and I have been robbed multiple times. My husband is out late at night, standing outside smoking, and he sees whole parades. And they're there all the time. At one
Thank you.
point, I started taking my camera out to go do my gardening.
All right, thank you. Other comments? Yes. No, you've already commented, yes, behind.
My name is Sherry Kinsey, and I am from Lakeside. However, I used to live in Coos Bay. I'm on the city council out there, and we have it just as rough because we have no tax base, so we have no law enforcement. We have the county sheriff, the sheriff's department, who will come out when we call them, and they're out there more than people realize they are because they're patrolling and stuff out there. But we have our own share of homeless, and we have our own share of homeless that have mental health issues and homeless that just want to be homeless. They don't want help. We have approached them. People have cleaned up. We have the Lakeside Riders that go out and help clean up. They don't want help. And I know there's more. It seems like every week we have more and more coming. And I know they're coming from Coos Bay and they're coming from North Bend. And I know they're coming from Reedsport and everywhere else. But we don't have the resources to fight the homeless problem as Coos Bay does. However, I appreciate every one of you guys. You guys are phenomenal. Every one of you. They're elected, but they're not paid. They're trying to come up with a solution, and they're trying to get people's input on what needs to happen. What do you think would work for this community? And instead of badgering them, step up, volunteer. You know, get with one of the groups who is willing to go out and clean up the needles. And I mean, they provide sharps containers, everything to make it safe. And just step up, take a stance, take back your community. We're going to have to in Lakeside because we don't have these fine folks that are protecting you guys. We have our own. And we have a problem, we have to call. And they have a long ways to come. But at least they do come when we call them.
Okay, other comments? Yes. Please give your name and where you reside.
Kurt Magnuson, I live in Coos Bay, and it's just a question off your earlier
Sure.
presentation.
Okay.
You're talking about Inglewood.
Yes.
And they would have low-cost housing, which is because of homelessness, no house. And so if that can happen, you say in 10 years of no taxes, at the end of that 10 years, do they go up to market value, or does it remain low-income housing?
That's a good question. I think it goes up to market value. Roger?
Well, I think it depends on the developer or the operator of the housing, whether it stays low income or not low income.
Oh, no, he's talking about market value. Two different things. Inglewood's going to be low-income housing, and it's a nonprofit, so they
Okay.
won't be taxed. But other housing developments, if there's a 10-year abatement, then they come back on the tax rolls, and that would be at market value.
At the market rate when they were built.
Right.
Yeah, because to maintain low-income housing, it needs to stay low-income
Right.
housing.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Anyone? Yes.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
You probably noticed I just walked in here. I was at home watching this. Got off work tonight. Was tired, but I decided to come down because I wanted to speak.
Okay.
I heard the whole presentation. I've heard most of the comments other than the 10 minutes. My name is
Oh,
John
yeah.
Chaplin.
Okay.
I'm the owner of a business. I came here 30 years ago, opened a repair shop, still operating it. The problem I see is that you guys have explained in nice detail about why you can't do anything. But if we're going to solve a problem, first you have to decide what's your goal. And my goal is I want to get rid of those people, the 30% that are causing all the trouble. So when you solve a problem, you start with what your goal is and you work backwards. I don't know what the answer is, but if that's a common goal, to not have those people here, then we work backwards from there. You don't talk about how you can accommodate their needs. They don't want to be accommodated. That faction of them, the ones that are causing the trouble. They don't want to be accommodated. The Devereaux Center is not this community's friend. They're at odds with what most of us are trying to live our lives. They're enabling these people. It's sickening to look at. And yeah, it would be nice if we could open those beds up. You know, it's tough to squeeze money out of these voters, I know that. But it's not going to fix that problem. These people don't care if you take them to jail. You're just going to be wasting gas transporting them. How long are you going to keep them? And then they're just out. It makes no difference. It's the same as if you cited it. Of course, you know, that's a good thing, but it's not the answer. And I am very pro law enforcement. And I appreciate the visibility at my business, on my street, in my community of these officers. You guys do a good job. And I just want to say thank you for that. But you're not the problem. We need to start with what our goal is. And if your goal isn't to get rid of them, folks, then we got to get rid of you and get somebody else.
Fine. So the thing is, that might be the problem, and we might want to resolve it. But we are limited what we can do, whether you like it or not.
I know that. I heard it.
But no, but you're not hearing it.
Start with the goal and then think of solutions.
Fine,
with
but that's what we're here for. We're listening. If you got solutions, not just to tell us what the problem is, we need solutions. Now, we had a sobering center mentioned tonight. We had some other things mentioned tonight, volunteerism. We mentioned about passing the jail bond, which needs to be done. These are solutions. We talked about trying to, Mrs. Anderson brought up about,
with all due respect,
well, I'm
with
sorry.
solutions.
Well, you can, that's your right. We also talked about eliminating 110 and how to do that. There's ways to do that. Those are the things that need to happen. Sitting up here, we are limited what we can do. We cannot change the state.
Tired of hearing that, sir.
Well, but it's the fact.
Well, then
But
get
that's
unlimited.
what we're
You
trying to
gotta think
explain to you.
outside the box.
Well, we are thinking out the box, and we've done a lot of things that have helped. Has it resolved it? Has it cured it? No. Is there more work to be done? Yes.
Circle
So thank
up.
you.
More work
on
to
it.
be, no, there's work to be done, period. And
You were
it
a
needs to be
chief,
done from
aren't you?
different angle. And I'm happy to volunteer with like-minded people. I'm not going to volunteer with somebody who thinks setting up a committee to study a commission is going to do anything about it. It's not.
Yeah. So
I miss the days of rousting, honestly.
Well,
I
it's
know
too
they
bad.
can't have them back. That's how it was when I was a kid. You moved along.
Well, you know, we have laws and stuff that we need to
I
follow.
understand.
Well,
I
no, yeah,
really
but you
do.
don't understand, though. That's the thing.
You think I don't understand?
No,
I
you
do.
don't, sir.
I
And
haven't
so,
had a parking ticket in 40 years. I understand the law.
I appreciate your comments, and unfortunately, I think we have some solutions that have been brought up to our attention. This council and this staff worked very hard and diligent to try to resolve this, and we're working forward with it, and we will continue.
I'm just asking to
Thank
think
you.
about what your
Thank
goal
you.
is. If
Thank
your
you.
goal isn't to move these people on, then you're misguided.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Okay, Mr. Anderson, and then we'll come back here, okay?
Folks, my name's Jim
Chairman Johnson. We met
Oh,
last
sorry,
month.
Mr. Johnson, I apologize.
Okay, we met last month.
Yes.
All right, since that time, I've seen a lot in the newspaper. Okay, I never saw it before.
You saw what, sir?
I've seen a lot of things happening in the newspaper.
Oh, okay.
The levies being brought up,
Mhm.
okay? Some other things have been announced. It took me and this group of people to come in here and get your attention to do that. You didn't do it before, and you've been sitting there for a long time. That's shameful. To sit there and have this gentleman write 10 cite and releases because he can't finally put them away. These people are leaving needles. What happens to a little kid? They step on a needle. When I was a kid, I went to a park and played. Can't do that anymore. Okay? Jim Johnson.
Thank you.
Okay. So, again, you see these people here. They got their attention was got. You got some attention. Wasn't the best that you liked, but you started doing something. Continue. If he has to write 10 cite and releases on the same person over and over, that's shameful.
Okay, so
Like I said
no,
before,
sir.
I don't wear a skirt, don't blow smoke.
Well, when you told me that last time, did I tell you that we would have a town hall meeting? And did we not? Did we not?
You said you would do something.
Did I say we would have a town hall meeting to address your issues? And we did. So the levy has got nothing to do with the city of Coos Bay. As I mentioned earlier, it's the county. And also, it's them that runs the jail, not the city of Coos Bay. And so, Chief, am I stopping you? Am I just telling you to write warnings? Can this council just change that?
No. I mean, I think we've discussed the issues that we are facing in terms of the citing and releasing. That's what we have to work with right now through our courts and through the limited capacity of our jail. And so that's what we need to overcome. We have to get to where we are able to address the warrants, take the people to jail, hold them accountable, and if it's a warrant outside of our area, they'll be extradited to wherever that jurisdictional agency is. And we'll continue to respond to every call that comes in. That's why my officers are running 25 to 30 calls per officer per shift. That's a heck of a call load. And so, if you are a victim of a crime, we're asking you to call still. Unfortunately, where we're at right now, it'll probably result in a citation in lieu of custody. So, and I guess that's why I would say the citizen's arrest part, I just didn't quite understand because we're going to reach the same result. So, anyhow.
All right. Comment?
Okay, I found it, so. Mayor and council, thank you very much for this opportunity. There is a glimmer of hope out there. The Oregon Mayors Association has appointed a task force of 25 mayors from across the state of Oregon to address the homeless crisis. And it is a crisis, there's no doubt. They will be pushing for legislation to help us with funding to help our issues such as housing and addiction and those sorts of things in the next session. So I look forward to seeing what they can present to us. And I might add, Mayor Jessica from North Bend is on that committee. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this committee. So thank you very much for your time.
You're the mayor of Lakeside, correct?
Oh yes, James Edwards from Lakeside. I apologize.
Okay, are there any more comments? Yes.
Lucinda DeNovo, City of Coos Bay and Coos Bay City Councilor, and I cannot be up on the dais because this is a public town hall and we can't have a quorum. It is interesting to sit on this side of the dais and hear some of the comments that have been made this evening. And I too am really happy to see the number of people here. I can tell you many of us who have served on this council since 2016, and in 2016 we agreed as a council that there was a homeless problem. That was in 2016. And what we really tried to do was, what are the things that we can actually control? And we also thought, you know what? This is a community-wide issue. This is a county-wide issue. This is a state issue. So we brought people together. We took it upon ourselves to bring, sir, I'd like you to be quiet while I do this. Is this okay? So we brought it upon ourselves to bring this group of people together to solve things. As a result of that, we have a community, right? We have a resource officer. As a result of that, we have a camping ordinance. As a result of that, we have housing that we've been working on. And the reality of the situation is it's totally frustrating that it takes a long time to get new housing in this community. And we have allocated resources for affordable housing. The reason this meeting was brought up was because of the good citizens of this community. And they wanted to know about the homeless issue. And now it's about the homeless issue and the crime issue. And there have been solutions this evening. You can vote. That's like the first thing that you can do. We just talked about the bond issue with the county. You're tired of people harassing you, you're tired of people vandalizing, you're tired of people stealing, well then vote for the bond so that we have more beds in this county. Vote for the bond. We talked about a warming center. Bob Moore said there has been a warming center here in the past and it was successful. That is another sobering, did I say warming center? Sobering center. Yeah, I'm warm right now, so yeah. So we've talked about a sobering center. There's a number of things that we've talked about, and I guess sitting on this side of the dais, all these things have been done. This just didn't happen because someone came to a meeting 2 weeks ago. It's preposterous. And guess what? We have city council meetings twice a month. And you are more than welcome to come to any meeting that you want to and give your public comment, because this is not something that is new to us, and we are attempting to address it. I bet my 2 minutes is up, Tom, so I will finish with that. I will thank the police department. I will thank the city manager. I will thank the staff. And sitting on this side, I'm going to thank my fellow councilors and the mayor. I think you've done an exceptional job this evening. Quite honestly, in my mind, it's unfortunate. We can only do so much. And I'm sorry that some of our constituents are hearing that as an excuse that we can't do anything, because we've been doing things since 2016. And I'm very proud of the work that this council has done.
And so I'm ending the public comments on that note. All right? So I'm going to just wrap things up. I think some of this has been said. And is it frustrating? Absolutely. Is it frustrating for the citizens, the community, the county? Is it frustrating for us? Absolutely. And also our officers, our staff. We live here. And, you know, we have a vested interest, it's like I started off the meeting with. So we do care. And we've been trying, and we do it. Besides the 2 council meetings a month, we also have a work session. And so 3 Tuesdays a month, we are available to come and make comments. My phone number is on the site. All our phone numbers are on the site. Our email addresses are on the site. I've gotten some comments about this, but not many. But they're available. If you want to talk, Mike will be glad to talk, right? And if others want to talk about it, I'll be glad to sit down with them, as long as they're going to respect my comments like I believe we have tonight. So yes, am I frustrated? Yes. You know, I don't like to listen to this, that we haven't done anything, because I really believe we do. So there is many aspects to the homelessness that's been explained and presented tonight. The city will be lobbying legislature for local funding to address homelessness, as the mayor from Lakeside stated. We're hoping that LOC will join us in this, and I'm sure that they will. We're also made a difference tonight. We have Representative Boomer right here. So he will take these comments back to the state legislature, and he will reiterate these comments that he's heard. And hopefully he'll make a difference. But he's one out of how many, Boomer?
I'm
Boomer played in a rock band.
Anyway, he's one of many, all right? The point being is that we can still, it's a democratic society, so we have to go through it. Drug abuse and drug addiction are huge factors that have contributed to this, and the voters voted to decriminalize most drugs. The voters did this. We didn't do this. This council didn't do it. I'm not saying any of us didn't vote for it, but what I'm saying is this council did not initiate that, right? But we got the repercussions of it, and our officers having to deal with it. So again, it was mentioned that a vote can be done, a referendum can be put out. Those things can happen, right? And believe me, I believe our officers and staff would be very pleased if that did happen. But it doesn't. In the meantime, we were sworn to uphold the law, and we will do that. At least I think we all will. And if we don't, Nate will make sure that we do. There is funding from the state and for drug and alcohol abuse. It's my understanding, and Boomer can correct me, that it's not being distributed. Right now it's being held up. So the funds are sitting there, but they're not being distributed for use and to help. Another problem. So call your legislatures, right?
Steve talked about that earlier.
You're right. The city is working with groups to help with housing, low income, workforce, housing in general. I think someone mentioned that it's all forms of housing. We are. I sit on a workforce committee, and workforce is just as important as low income housing. And we're trying to get there. It's going to take time, unfortunately. You know, it's took time for developers to come in and start building it. We just couldn't, as a city, go out and start building homes. That's not our mandate, and we don't have the funding to do it. There's just no way for us to do it. We can try to entice developers and low-income housing, like Northwest, and others to do it. So during the legislative session, the city will be posting, we want to post bills on our website that will be dealing with drugs and homelessness. So I hope that you pay attention to it. These will be bills that you can do something about. We will put them on our site, and we will show you that there are issues that you personally can do something about. Call your legislatures, pay attention, and get involved.
That goes in the Friday newsletter.
And it can go in the Friday newsletter. Sure, that's a good idea, Bob. So, you know, what can you do? Continue with the neighborhood watch groups that's been brought up and talked about. I know that it was mentioned the other day from someone from the Prefontaine area. It's worked for them. I think the chief can reiterate that there's others. I know the East Side Neighborhood Watch is going to be on our fire station. We help and assist these people. Will this resolve all these issues? No, but it's a start, and we've been doing it, as Councilor Nadelvo stated. I appreciate everyone coming out, and I appreciate everyone participating. I'm almost reluctant to even mention this, right? Do we want to have another town hall meeting? Yes. So, you know, I think we will, and it's important that we keep this communication open. But again, if you have a long situation that you want to discuss or very in depth, please call us, let us know, we'll sit down and talk. I'm always willing to have coffee. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. Have a good evening.